I'd like to call the City Council and Urban Renewal Agency joint work session meeting to order. We have the fiscal year 23-24 annual comprehensive financial report for the City of McMinnville and the fiscal 2023-24 annual fiscal report for the McMinnville Urban Renewal District. I'd like to call on Finance Director Katie Henry to introduce both topics and introduce our consultant, Tanya Moffett.
Just hold it down and talk. How does that sound? I haven't quite moved over from the other room. Nope, it's not going to stay on. Okay.
There's a button on the bottom. You slide it.
Okay, we're in business now. Good evening, Mayor, Council. We're moving right over from a committee meeting, so I apologize that I am not quite all put together here yet. So this evening we are going over the fiscal year 24 audit report. So this is an audit report for the year that ended June of 24, June 30th of 2024. We have with us Tanya Moffett. She is from Marina & Co., who have been our auditors for some time. She's presenting both the city and the URA audits for us this evening. The annual comprehensive financial report, the ACFR for the city, as well as the financial statements for the URA. So I will turn it over to Tanya to present to us tonight. Tanya?
Thank you. I have to.
And I'm going to interrupt you because just to make sure that we're clear, this evening we are not going to accept the financial statements at the regular council meeting directly after this. We will bring those back at another meeting in case there are any questions that come from this or any follow-up that is needed. I know these are pretty quick meetings. We just finished the audit committee meeting. And there were some questions that may come back. And so I want to encourage you also, if you have questions this evening that we're not able to address in this time, since we do have some new counselors, we have some people who are new. If you have additional questions, please feel free to contact us or ask us to come back with them. And then we can put the acceptance of the financial statements on a later council meeting so that we have time to address those. Now you can have it, Tanya.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that. So, as Katie stated, I'm Tanya Moffett with Marina & Company, and we are the city's external financial statement auditors. And I am here to present the June 30, 2024 financial statements for the city of McMinnville, as well as the McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency. As Katie stated, this is for the period ended June 30, 2024. So that is from July 1st, 2023 through June 30, 2024. We completed our audit and issued an unmodified or clean opinion, which is the highest level of financial statement opinion that we can give. And that was dated on December 23rd, 2024. One of the things that we would like to give thanks to the city council as well as county management, specifically city management for allowing the previous finance director to work with us to finish the financial statement audit after she left, because it made it so that we were still able to complete the audit in a timely manner. Sometimes when there's a gap in staff, it makes it so that then the financial statements are late, and the financial statements were not late. So I just want to say thank you for that. I also want to say thank you for letting me attend virtually. Normally I would be there in person, but my son has an orchestra concert tonight, and so there was no way I could make it from McMinnville back to Clackamas in time to make it to his orchestra concert. So thank you very much for allowing me to do this tonight virtually. So on our financial statements, we issue an opinion on the basic financial statements and the supplementary information. We apply limited procedures to the management discussion and analysis, or MD&A, and we apply limited procedures to some of the required supplementary information, which are those 10-year schedules for pension, as well as OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. The introductory section, so if somebody's name is spelled wrong, that is not our fault. We don't audit that. And the statistical section, we also do not audit. The statistical section and the transmittal letter is included in the financial statements because the city is part of the Government Finance Officers Association's award program, which is the annual comprehensive financial report. The city received the award, or the ACFR award, for the June 30, 2023 financial statements. So that award is presented in the city's financial statements for this year. So we anticipate that the city will get that same award for the June 30, 2024. But what happens is you finish the financial statements, you turn it in, then independent reviewers go through checklists to make sure that everything's done appropriately, that it matches this very high level standard. And then the city, we anticipate that the city will receive that award for June 30, 2024. It's a lot of work for the city staff to pull together the information, specifically the statistical section, which is 10 years worth of historical data that is included in there. When we did our audit, there was no restrictions placed on our audit, and there were no significant difficulties incurred during the audit. There were no disagreements with management. There's also no new accounting policies, which means that if you take the June 30, 2023 financial statements and the June 2024 financial statements and compare them, they will actually be apples to apples. If you go back one more year to June 30, 2022, you won't be comparing apples to apples because there was some significant accounting policy changes that happened in June 30, 2023. But this year, the 2023 and 2024 are comparing apples to apples. There's also some estimates in the financial statements. Some of the estimates include depreciation, so we don't know how long an asset's going to last. Compensated absences, we also don't know when employees are going to take their time off. So they may take it off when they are at a higher rate. So they maybe after a COLA increase or maybe a step up in their salary. The largest estimate on the city's financial statements is the net pension liability. If we want to talk about that, I can talk a lot about that. It's a number that the city does not come up with themselves. That is a number that comes from Oregon PERS and comes from the actuary. That number is very volatile depending on what the discount rate is that the Oregon PERS has selected. I can go into that and explain that if you'd like me to. And then the other significant estimate is the other post-employment healthcare benefits. There's an asset for one and there's a liability for one on the city's financial statements. We didn't find any transactions entered into the city that lacked authoritative guidance. And we also have a report that the Oregon State Legislature likes for municipal auditors to report on. And this is at the very end of the financial statements. I don't know if I have access to be able to share. I'm going to see if I do. I think I do. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to I have to send a request, so I don't know if I'll be able to or not. We'll see.
You should be able to now.
I can now. Thank you. So hopefully you can see independent auditors report on compliance. Yes? I can't tell.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're
I just wanted to make sure I was sharing the correct screen. So the Oregon State Legislature has told Oregon municipal auditors that there's some specific things that they want us to look at when we're doing financial statement audits in the state of Oregon. And so for the city, it's on page 200 of the financial report. And for the urban renewal, it is on, it's 42 of the PDF, but it's page number 28 in the financial statements. So these reports are on specific things that are not it's more compliance based than financial based. And so these are the items that the basically legislature has said that they want us to look at. So they want us to look at deposits of public funds in financial institutions to make sure that they're collateralized. They want us to look at debt, how much debt the city has compared to how much they can have. Budget requirements, if the city's went over budget, if the city has published the notifications for the budget appropriately, that everybody's had an opportunity to be a part of the budget process. Insurance and fidelity bonds, programs funded from outside sources, so federal funds, state funds that the city receives, highway or gas tax revenue, that those are being spent appropriately, investment of surplus funds, public contract and purchasing, that if the city's going out for a project, that they're going out for bid appropriately, publishing in the newspaper, allowing individuals to bid on those projects and selecting based off of some sort of criteria. And so we test for all of these things, and we did it for both the Urban Renewal Agency as well as for the city. And there was only one compliance item that was noted, and that was in the Urban Renewal Fund. It exceeded appropriations for the year in the amount of $2,599. And so that is the only item that was noted of non-compliance. And then this report goes to the Secretary of State. Nothing really happens. It's just noting that there was an over an expenditure. It's very common for entities to have over expenditures just based off of accounting rules. Bills come in after year end. You don't know exactly how much they're going to be. But that was the only finding that we had for Oregon minimum standards. I know when we were doing the audit committee meeting, there was a couple of questions that came about. I don't know if the finance director, Katie, wants to talk about them, or if you'd like me to talk about them.
If you could bring up the page with the revenues.
With revenues?
The,
Government-wide?
no, let's bring up the fund level statement, statement of revenues and expenditures. And then if you could make it significantly larger so that we can just see the general fund. There we go. There was a question.
So we are looking at page 52 of the financial statements for anybody following along.
There was a question as to where the city's service charge shows up. The answer to that question is that the service charge is rolled into other charges for services, which would include parks and recreation charges. It can include any type of charge for services rendered. Now, you may wonder, why would the city services fee be in a charge for services rendered? It's a fee for services performed by city employees. It's paid to the general fund. It pays for police services on the streets. It pays for the city manager's services. It pays for accounting staff services to create these financial reports. It pays for city engineer services that are not covered by engineering fees. It pays for a whole variety of services, and that's why, in accordance with accounting principles, we're required to report it in this charges for services line. So that's why it shows up there on the financial statements.
And let me just make a clarification while you do that, so that future, our own financial statements, not auditor, we have asked that that be broke out in the future if possible, so we can see just the city service charge. And Katie's kind enough to try to do that.
And so the other question, what was the other question that?
Wastewater.
The other question was the interest rate, the interest paid from the Urban Renewal for the RB Rubber project, where that shows the RB Rubber loan.
And unfortunately, I am not familiar with that loan. It predates me, but does our city manager recall that?
Sorry, go ahead.
It should be in that wrapped into the other debt service that Urban Renewal is paying, because we have debt service, Heather, for Alpine Avenue. Are there any other debt instruments right now that we're paying on, Heather, in Urban Renewal? So it's part of those payments. Part of those debt service payments is the interest only payment.
Can you show that for us on the screen?
I'm trying to do it on the
Thank
specifically
you.
on the urban renewal statements. It might be easier to see that. So this is the urban renewal agency's financial statements. It is page 13. And then in the urban renewal debt service fund, it's being paid out in this interest number right here as a part of that 28,000. And then on the city side of the financial statements, if we look at the proprietary funds, and we're looking at page 56, it's a part of this interest income for the wastewater operations.
Okay, those don't look like they balance to me.
Well, that's because there's other things in that interest income amount in the wastewater fund.
When was the loan from wastewater to purchase RB rubber?
I think it was in fiscal year 2023.
That's correct. I don't remember when we started making the interest payments. It wasn't exactly the date of the loan, but the interest earnings from wastewater include the investment earnings on their reserves and other interest payments for interfund loans that we have done for capital expenses between wastewater and the general fund the last 3 fiscal years. So that the urban renewal transfer to wastewater is only a part of what wastewater gets in interest.
Okay, so I guess we'll look for the next meeting as to when that.
I'll be happy to do some research and bring that back.
Thank you.
I think we at least answered the questions that we had got asked to answer. I'd like to open it up if people have questions, or if you want me to show you specifically the way the statements work, whatever you'd like.
Do any counselors have any questions?
Maybe,
Payne?
sorry. Oh, maybe Tanya, I thought Dan was gonna go, sorry. Tanya, maybe could you show us the 2599? I think it was it was between the urban renewal area. It was just a small discrepancy. You described it as potentially a bill that came in later.
Yes.
Just as a matter of on the record, so to speak, but also that information can come in a little delayed. Thank you.
Yeah. So where we see it in the urban renewal fund's financial statements is on page 25 of the statements, which is in the required supplementary information. It's the schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. What we have here, hopefully you can see this. I know this is probably really small. We have transfers to the city of McMinnville here, and we had the original amount was for budget was 57,000, and then the final was 64,000, and then what was actually paid to the city was this 67,000, and so it's this 2,599 over expenditure. And I believe it was interest. I don't know for sure. I can't remember. So that's where that discrepancy is, and it's reported on the minimum standards report on page 29 right here.
Heather, did you want to clarify that?
Excuse me, as I struggle with the mic. I can clarify where the invoice came from. I don't understand the audit numbers, so I'm not touching
Fair enough.
that. But yeah, so this was As part of our scope of work for the environmental analysis on the Northwest Rubber site, there were samples taken and they were stored in drums on the site. It was not part of the scope of work of the consultant to remove those drums from the site. And so at the end of the work, we realized that we needed to do something with them. There was slight contamination in them, so they needed to be taken care of in a special way. We brought the consultant back to remove those drums, and so that's what that number is for. It was very late in the fiscal year when that occurred.
Yeah, typically what happens is those bills come in right after year end and you don't know exactly how much they're going to be. And so it's very rare for entities to not have those discrepancies sometimes.
If I can point out, the reason this is of importance is that it does create a finding, and that's why it is in the results. It is not a finding that carries us to the point of having to respond or have a written response to the Secretary of State. So that's why we're not bringing to you any motion to accept any written response. There's nothing that has to go to the Secretary of State, but it is a finding that's noted here. It's just not big enough or important enough for us to have any response to it.
Thank you. Councilor Tukalski?
Yeah, Director Henry, what's the threshold for reporting to the Secretary of State?
If the auditors deem it's material enough. And so the discussion paragraph there that she has, she's turning to it, I believe.
Yeah, I read through this.
So they determine whether or not they deem it high enough, and then they send it to Secretary of State. Now, Secretary of State can send us back a letter and say, we want more information on this. This is severe enough. And if we had received that letter, we would then bring it to you and issue a response. There was no such letter received. There was no follow-up required of that. You can't put an actual number. They could decide.
Okay, I understand. So my actual question was a bit back. When you had the services fee up, could you pull that up again, Ms. Moffitt?
Yep. Just give me 1 second.
So my question, Director Henry, is we're operating out of essentially I'll call it a slush fund for lack of a better term, because it's a fund that isn't appropriated to a certain area. It's a general fund, and it's being used by specific areas such as what you said, like the engineering overages. And Mayor Morris said that those are going to be broken out next year, so I think that would be handy to see. But why is it that we're operating these specific departments out of a general fund?
So I think that, well, first, I think the splitting out was just splitting out the service fee on the reports compared to charges for services. The other departments are all general fund departments,
Right.
and they're all supported by general funds.
Right.
So the service fees are general funds.
Right, but some of these departments are drawing out of the service fee area more than others. Is that correct or incorrect?
They are drawing out of the general fund, which is the combination of property taxes and service fees and all of those. It's all combined in the general fund. There's not a distinction in any of the non-designated funds. So that's what the general fund has in it, are all of those funds combined that are not designed for a specific source.
So if I could ask, if it's all drawn out of the general fund, I understand what you're saying there. If the specific departments are drawing out of that at different rates, do they not have enough within their specific budget for their area? Or
I believe the city manager would like to answer that question.
So let me say, first of all, the city doesn't have any slush funds. Let me just say it really clear.
I said that was a poor.
It's not an okay term. Most of the city's general fund revenues are non-discretionary, or are discretionary rather, which means they support all of the general fund operations. We don't allocate discretionary revenue to individual funds or organizations, or programs or organizations inside the general fund. The council's control over those budgets is related to the expenditure that you allow. And so overall, the general fund has to balance. And so the control is the amount of appropriation authority that the council gives to the departments to spend. There are specific revenues that you'll see in the budget, planning fees, engineering fees, fees for recreation programs, and those are tracked by department or organization depending on where the revenues come from. So if they're specifically generated fees for service, then you'll see those in all of the general fund departments and the organizations under those departments. But for things like franchise fees, property taxes, interest income, other charges for services, those are discretionary, and so they're not specifically allocated to the department. So you won't see a department in the general fund that has a revenue that balances with its expenditures. Those discretionary revenues show up in the non-departmental section, and so the whole fund balances, if that helps.
Understand?
Do you want me to pull up that schedule that's in the financial statements?
I don't want to completely derail this
Okay.
conversation, so you
Let me ask
can
you
move
this.
on. Thank you.
It's on
Answer.
page 108 if you want to look at.
Before you move from that, can I ask a follow-up question on that number that you just had up on the screen,
Yep.
which is now gone?
No,
That 4.8 million for charge for services, excuse me, I'm sorry. I assume that that is not just the city service fee revenue. That's all the different ways in which we charge for services, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That was all I wanted.
Scott, did you have any questions? No? Zach? Nope. Dan, do you have additional or? Okay. Counselor Payne?
Council President Peralta didn't have questions either. He's on Zoom.
Forgot about him. I'm glad I have you, Claudia. Okay. Katie, do you have anything else to share?
Not on the audit.
Okay. Anything else from the auditor?
No, we just appreciate being able to work with the city. City staff was great, not just finance. We work with a lot of different departments while we do the audit. We had unfeathered access to everybody, so we really appreciate working with the city. We have one more year on our contract, so we will do the June 30, 2025 audit, and then the city will be going out for bid for the June 30, 2026. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. So Katie, we have those few questions just about the RB rubber interest. Heather answered the question about the $25.99 and just future breakout if we can on the city service fee. I think I covered all of that. Okay. If there's no further questions, I will adjourn the joint work session meeting at 5:28.
6:28.
6:28. We need it.
Thank you.
So I just going to let you guys know that we can't start till 7 because that's when it's posted. So we do have about 10 more minutes to sit and visit. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Can you raise your hand if you have an empty seat next to you?
Yay, it's officially 7 o'clock. I will now call the city council meeting to order at 7 PM and request that Claudia do a roll call.
Counselor Cunningham?
Here.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Present.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Here.
Counselor Payne?
Here.
Counselor Geary?
Good evening.
Council President Peralta?
Present via Zoom.
And Mayor Morris.
Here. If you're able to stand, please stand for the pledge. I am going to ask Councilor Cunningham to lead us in the pledge tonight. Now it's time for public comments. Any interested audience members are invited to provide comments, and any comment provided that requires some type of follow-up will be assigned to a staff member. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for a public hearing at some future date. I want you guys to understand that it used to be 3 minutes per person, and we did change that to 4 because at most meetings we don't have this many people to speak, and they would generally go over the 3 minutes. So we've changed it to 4. However, because we have so many people, and if you can keep your comments shorter, we can allow more people to speak, and we will time those. So that is just an option when we have so many people if you like, but normally it will be limited to 4 minutes. If you're on Zoom and wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature or chat feature and send a chat to the city recorder team. Once your turn is up, we will announce your name and unmute your mic. Please announce your name and the city you live in when you come up to record. And also a reminder that you can always submit comments via email as well if you don't get an opportunity to speak here to us. And all of us do read all those emails, and we appreciate your comments. So Claudia, do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
Yes, first I want to state for the record that we did receive about 14 written comments, and those were all emailed to counselors and will be made part of the amended packet posted tomorrow. And we will start with Jonathan Jacoby, who's on Zoom.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Morris and council members. Tonight I'm addressing you on behalf of myself and my mother, Jill Shenafield, who is in the audience tonight. Last Friday night, March 7th, around 7:24 p.m., my family's dog of nearly 17 years, a Jack Russell Terrier named Roxy, was killed in our front yard at Northwest 14 and Elm during an unprovoked attack by 2 hybrid wolf dogs that escaped their property at Northwest 9th and Alder. Roxy was sniffing the ground when the 2 wolf dogs rushed onto our property, bit down, broke her neck, and tried to take her away. She was killed in less than 5 seconds, and I had to personally face off with these dogs in the street in order to get Roxy's body back. 17 years of companionship was gone in a traumatic instant. Roxy was not the first nor only victim killed that night on their own property. Our neighbor's cat, Ragnar, was the first confirmed victim. And 45 minutes after Roxy, a mile away, they killed another cat named Kiki on her front porch in an attack that was described by a witness as tearing to shreds. These were not acts of anxious, lost animals trying to find their way home. Wolves are extremely smart, coordinated, and territorial. This was a killing spree designed to mark their perceived territory. When I was giving my statement to the police, who were very empathetic to the situation, as soon as I described the attackers, the officers immediately knew which dogs and which property were responsible. These animals have become well known to this area of town. In fact, these dogs have been reported for 3 years for noise, escaping, and the abysmal conditions in which they live. While reports have been filed and citations issued, the owner has made no changes and yet has been able to maintain possession of these animals, and now they're becoming lethal. The officers also informed me that McMinnville no longer has an animal control department, leaving their hands tied in taking immediate action. When the department was closed, the tools, training, resources, and responsibility did not fully transfer to law enforcement or any other agency. And unless there is a human victim, McMinnville PD has to consider events such as these a low priority. Wolf dogs are meant to be protectors of farmland, not suburban pets locked in kennels. Most of the state of Oregon considers them wild animals, and there are very strict regulations required in keeping them. These regulations have not and are not being met by the owner. And the city has known about this for years, and now we are suffering the consequences. These animals should not be in our neighborhood, and our pets should be alive today. If we are not going to have a dedicated animal control presence in our city, then why aren't we strictly enforcing the regulations involved in keeping these animals? Why are they even allowed within the city limits? Do we have to wait until a person is attacked? There are 2 elementary schools next to my house. If one of those kids is the next victim, will that finally spark change and get these animals removed from our community, or can we take action now? Admittedly, and given the circumstances, these are emotionally charged questions. So I'd also like to ask, how can we better support our local agencies so that they have the means to proactively protect and serve the community, including our pets? Our neighborhood citizens are scared to go outside, especially with their pets. Wolf dogs can leap over a 6-foot fence with no issue, which means we aren't even safe in our own backyards. If a person kills a pet, it's a felony, but when a pet is killed by the pet of a negligent owner, it's just property damage because the law simply considers pets to be property. But Roxy was not property. She was a beloved member of our family who was violently taken from us, and she deserves, as we all do, justice and change. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, and I'm sorry for the loss of your dog.
Next, we have Mike Strickland.
Make the presentation right here?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So if you could say your name and the name and,
Mike.
yes. Your name and the city you live in, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mike Strickland, and hello, and thank you, Mayor Morris and City Council, and for the chance to speak. I'm here to speak about a profoundly dangerous situation. Last Friday night, I had just let my cat safely out in the yard at 7:10 p.m. when I witnessed a pack of 4 loose dogs entering the West Side Memorial Elementary School parking lot, trying to get into the school playground. 3 of the dogs were lighter color, 1 was a darker color. The dogs then came over to our house, and in a flash were on our front porch. They were moving quickly, and they were huge. I called my wife, who was in the house, to alert her to put out a post on the Facebook Lost and Found Pets group about these dogs being loose. Then I called 911 at 7:13 p.m. One pair of dogs took off running down the street, and I followed them in my car for several blocks until a dead end at 10th Northwest, where they went into another neighborhood. I did this all out of the goodness of my heart to protect the dogs from being hit by cars and to watch over them. They almost got hit by another driver on Micklebrook. Meanwhile, back in my house, the other 2 are killing my cat. My wife heard some strange bumping noises on the side of the house. It was 7:20. Turns out that was when Ragnar was mauled to death. We found him 2 hours later in a window well with severe dog bites on the side, in the side yard, where my wife had pinpointed the earlier noise. And you can see the severe bites on that illustration I just gave you. All right, let's get back to the 7:20 timeline when Ragnar was killed. 4 minutes later, 7:24, the dogs then killed our next door neighbor's dog, Roxy, which was captured on camera, and that was Mr. Jacoby that just gave that presentation. Losing a pet is the worst feeling. I had no idea we had this much danger in our town, but losing a pet under such senseless, needless manner is beyond words. This situation with this grossly negligent owner who is trying to raise wolf dogs, of all things, in a small backyard in the middle of a quaint residential neighborhood is just plain psychotic. You just don't do this. And we haven't even talked about the fact this happened in front of an elementary school with another school 3 doors down. It's unthinkable what could have happened. It must be clearly stated that dogs behave differently when they are in a pack. They have a pack mentality. Never forget that. I personally observed these dogs moving together in a pack and quickly scouting territory in search of prey. This owner of the wolf dogs is consistently pushing the envelope of what is reasonable and safe in a dense city environment with lots of vulnerable domestic pets. I need some water. There is no decency and respect for the neighbors. This has to end now. The situation is far too dangerous. The dogs are now back with the owner. Nothing has changed, and the owner has repeatedly failed to safely contain the dogs. It can happen again and again and again. What's next? A car accident? More precious pets? A small child? Small claims court can yield a 4 to 5 figure judgment. Thanks. But if we don't act now, and a child is the next victim, then the city and the police department will have a 7-figure lawsuit of criminal negligence against them. Pause. I don't want to fight the city. I wish the city to do well and prosper, and I so appreciate and respect our law enforcement. I know they are understaffed and underfunded. They are people just like you and me, and they're trying to do a good job and do the right thing. But we implore you to fix this problem now. Remove these dogs out of the city now. We must move quickly to create new laws and ordinances to keep this from ever happening again. If we've sacrificed our pets, then the least we can do is to honor them by swiftly removing the danger and creating new laws that keep future pets, children, and the community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Elizabeth Hedge.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm from McMinnville.
Can you speak up
Thank you to
just
Mayor Morris and to
a
City
little bit?
Council members for being here and for hearing our concerns. I am here on behalf of myself and both of my parents, including my dad, Mike, who just spoke, as well as hundreds of concerned community members I've connected with online in the last few days. As we know, a devastating series of killings took place during the evening of Friday, March 7th. My family's beloved cat, Ragnar, was brutally slaughtered in his own side yard by loose wolf dogs that had escaped their enclosure. My dad has already shared the timeline of what happened at our house. I simply do not have words to describe the pain of losing Ragnar. He was a brave, funny, sweet, and loving boy that did not deserve this. I am also heartbroken for Jonathan and Jill, who lost their precious dog, Roxy, as well as the third known victim so far, a cat who was seized off its own porch and ripped into pieces in front of its owner by the same wolf dogs, according to eyewitness accounts. I know many community members are watching now or will see this meeting later. Maybe like myself, you knew nothing about the owner of these wolf dogs before Friday's killing spree. What you need to know is that this owner has a long history of code violations, citations, and complaints from neighbors. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of what I've personally been able to verify through public records so far. I have only received a partial list of public records about this owner from the city, and my public records request from the police department is still pending. Public records from the city indicate there were code violations dating back to 2021, including 5 citations for excessive howling, 5 separate instances of animals escaping, 2 of which specified her dogs entered other people's private property, and complaints that she is operating a wolf dog breeding business without a proper permit and keeping more than 4 dogs over the age of 6 months for this purpose, which is not allowed. I have a screenshot of a post appearing to be posted by the owner with her name on a Facebook group last May, listing 4 puppies available for adoption and stating that they have, quote, 40 to 45% or more gray wolf content. I also found that as of last month, after a lengthy series of appeals, the city made a final decision that she is using her backyard as an animal enclosure for her dogs, which violates city codes by being too close to her side and rear property lines. In addition, community members have informed me that there are more past police reports involving this owner and her dogs, including an instance of another pet being mauled by this owner's dogs. The owner of these wolf dogs seems eager to paint herself as the victim of an unfair city code enforcement process, and reportedly has posted many comments online accusing others of misinformation and hysteria while taking zero responsibility and offering zero apology to those of us whose pets were killed by her dogs. We cannot let one person bully their neighbors and their community into accepting a profoundly dangerous situation, which was proven by the killings on Friday. I have the following questions for the city. Why on earth were these dogs returned to their owner into the same conditions they escaped from immediately after killing 3 pets? The fact that this happened at all indicates either inadequate laws available to enforce, inadequate enforcement resources, or a combination of both. How will action be taken right now to ensure public safety and that this never happens again? Finally, Yamhill County Dog Control Code allows for habitual offenders to lose their right to own any dogs while living in Yamhill County. Why has this owner not yet been designated as a habitual offender? Anyone with a teaspoon of common sense can agree that this is not a responsible dog owner. She has inflicted an unreasonable amount of pain and suffering on her community. It cannot be allowed to continue. I beg you, do not wait until an adult is injured or a toddler is killed by these dangerous dogs to take this situation seriously. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Catherine Wright.
Catherine Wright.
Catherine, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Oh, she's online.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I wanted to speak on the same topic tonight. I live just 4 blocks from where these wolf dogs live, but I understand that, you know, this current situation is going to be handled under the current rules we have in place at the moment, and that there's really not much we can do about that. The reason I'm here is to really plead to the city to review their ordinances and the animal control situation, and to appeal to you to work with the county to reinstate an effective animal control program. The recent escape of this pack of wolf dogs, there was 4 of them, I believe, in total, was not their first, as you've heard. And if we'd had better city ordinances and more effective animal control, given the history of issues with these dogs and their owner, this really should not have happened. I mean, it really should not have happened. It should have been dealt with long ago. And my take is that the city just doesn't have the resources in place to do that. But something needs to be done about that. I'm quite sure that that carnage could have been avoided. We desperately need to have an effective animal control program and a facility. Ideally in collaboration with the county. I realize this is more the county's purview, but you know, the cities are able to do something about this as well, and to, you know, work with the county, put some pressure on the county to take some steps here. Other smaller counties have done this. I actually adopted one of my dogs in 2019 from the Clatsop County shelter, and they had a specific facility, state-of-the-art facility, with staff dedicated to animal control. Clatsop County has a population of 41,000, roughly. You know, if they can do it, why can't we? Whether it's the city of McMinnville on its own, in conjunction with other cities, or in conjunction with the county. Something needs to be done and should be done. So please make these issues a priority. Take advantage of the fact that right now you have a lot of community members who want to see something happen, are willing to get involved to help this along its way, and are very invested in seeing something improve here. If we don't do better, we are going to be having this problem again, whether it is this pack of wolf dogs or another pack of dogs or more wolf dogs or whatever. It's going to happen again. And if we have something in place to address this properly, next time it will not be perpetuated. So please, please give some time to thinking about and working towards a proper animal control system, because we really don't have anything here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Next, we have John Olson. John Olson.
Good evening. My name is John Olson. I live in McMinnville, Oregon. Mayor, Council, I come before you tonight on a different matter. I serve as the President and CEO of the McMinnville Area Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here tonight to express our Chamber's strong support for the Chemeketa Community College bond measure this May, and urge the City Council to do the same. As the voice of business here in McMinnville, we understand that education and workforce development are directly tied to economic success. Chemeketa's Yamhill Valley campus is a crucial resource, providing students with the education, skills, and job training they need to secure living wage jobs, jobs that sustain families and strengthen our local community. These students are not just learners, they are the future of McMinnville's workforce. the next generation of business owners, innovators, and community leaders. This bond measure will ensure that the Yamhill Valley campus remains a high-quality learning environment that meets the demands of today's economy. This bond will fund crucial upgrades to classrooms, student support spaces, and infrastructure, ensuring that students have access to modern tools and technology that prepare them for the real-world careers that they're training for. The impact of this bond extends beyond education. It directly affects our community's economy and quality of life. Chemeketa's career and technical education programs and medical training programs play an essential role in providing the skilled professions that McMinnville needs. The healthcare industry depends on Chemeketa graduates, nurses, medical assistants, and technicians to keep our hospital and clinics running. Similarly, industries like manufacturing, automotive technology, and business management rely on well-trained professionals to sustain and grow their operations. These programs are vital to our economic infrastructure, and modernized facilities will ensure that they continue to thrive. Supporting this bond is an investment in McMinnville's future. When students have access to quality education in state-of-the-art facilities, they graduate job-ready, prepared to fill the positions that power our local businesses and industries. When businesses have a strong talent pipeline, they grow and prosper. And when families have access to good jobs and economic stability, our entire community flourishes. I want to emphasize that this is not a new tax or a new bond. It is a continuation of the investment our community has made in education, in workforce development, and economic opportunity. Chemeketa has long been a pillar of our region's educational infrastructure, and renewing this bond ensures that we can continue to support students, businesses, and industries that rely on a well-trained workforce. On behalf of the McMinnville Area Chamber of Commerce and our business community, I strongly urge the City Council to publicly support this bond measure. A strong Chemeketa means a stronger McMinnville. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Next we have Stacy Mayhew.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. I'm here to talk about Quarry Park. My name is Stacy Mayhew, and we've lived in McMinnville for 22 years, raised our family here. My family and I are avid cyclers, and we have enjoyed cycling around McMinnville. My boys grew up riding their BMX bikes in Quarry Park, actually. They're all in their 30s now, and they would ride their bikes down to Joe Dancer, ride around Joe Dancer, and enjoy the skate park down there. I personally am not for a BMX push park, especially since Newburgh has a nationally certified BMX push park and track, and that's just 20 minutes away. Unfortunately, there's a huge push to what I feel is destroy our beautiful Quarry Park and to put in an exclusive push park, BMX park, bike park track. So I'm asking you to look into alternatives. I know some have already been looked into, and I'm asking you to do that harder. The first one would be Joe Dancer. That one, it seems super logical. I know that the flooding issue has come up. However, there's already bike trails down there, hiking trails, soccer fields, baseball fields, and a skate park that are not bothered by the flooding. And there's also already infrastructure and ample parking at Joe Dancer. Second would be Lower City Park. I know that's been looked into also. Once again, you've got some infrastructure going on there. It's centrally located. Another one would be West Hills Neighborhood Park. And then there's also a Boy Scout Jamboree Park behind Evergreen that, Evergreen would maybe love to have a park back there. All worth looking into. I think the city would serve the citizens better by putting in some park benches in Quarry Park where people can sit and enjoy the nature. Also, maybe some doggy pots. A lot of people like to walk their dogs back there, although it's a very clean park. The people with their dogs take very good care of their dogs and clean up after them. Maybe some reinforcement of the trails that already exist there that would accommodate people with mobility issues. There's already access from all three sides, and then also access off of Second. And I think that hundreds of us already enjoy Quarry Park the way that it is, and I think hundreds more would enjoy Quarry Park if they knew that Quarry Park was a park and it wasn't private property. I think the sign that's there scares a lot of people off. If they knew that it was a park, if we had a city park sign there, I think hundreds more would take advantage of it and enjoy it, as that would be inclusive instead of exclusive, which is the way that I see a push park being. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Next we have Nathan Cron.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. I'd like to preface this by saying this meeting should have happened 5 to 6 years ago.
Can you pull the mic closer to your mouth, please? Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'd like to preface this by saying this meeting should have happened at least 3 to 5 years ago, but here we are today. Due to the city's utter negligence. I think that we're all lucky that as opposed to being forced to deal with this through a lawsuit, that we're here talking before somebody a human was injured. Around May of 2018, I was sitting on my front porch. I live one house away from Sandra. I was sitting on my front porch, and I watched one of Sandra's pit bulls jump out of the front window, run up, and there was a young girl with a golden retriever walking by. The dog attacked her and the dog. I'm sorry, Sandra's pit bull attacked her and the dog. I was able to run down, help them out, and separate them. I was injured, but not that injured, and we'll talk about, I should have said something about that. We'll talk about that here in just a second. I talked to MacPD at that point. That was in 2018. And they made it sound like they were going to take care of it, but they did not. One interesting thing is that sometime in the next month after my situation happened, all the pit bulls just went poof. And I think it'd be amazing if we could find out what happened with that. But I bring this up because that's the first of 2 packs of animals that this woman should never have had any right with. The hybrid wolves she has now, the hybrid wolves have nothing to do with what's happening, except they're here in the middle of it. She brought the hybrid wolves in, and she has created this. I will say that when they first came in, there was incessant barking, and the barking got worse as they got older, and she added more. We're talking barking all night long. I need to get this. I have had to go over to Jeff's house, which is my neighbor who lives right next to Sandra. I've had to help workers that were there pinned in the back of the house because the hybrid wolf dogs got under the fence and were just about ready to hurt them. I was also there when the same hybrid dogs dug underneath the fence and partially destroyed Jeff's dog, almost killed him. Again, really nothing happened. Another issue that I have is I can see from my back porch, I can see what it looks like, the sanctuary. I can show you pictures of one that I took just minutes ago, actually an hour ago. And the dogs are emaciated. They're chained to the ground back there. They're chained on short chains. And that's been Friday I looked and that's how it was. Today I looked and same thing. There's so much more to the story, especially what we as neighbors have worked through for the last 3 to 4 years, with really nothing happening. Now that multiple animals had to die at one time, we're now doing something. The hybrids made it to the elementary school. What would have happened if they were to make it to the elementary school during...
Just need you to wrap it up.
During drop-off or recess? What kind of meeting would this be if a child had been drug off or killed? The animals that died were just like kids and our loved ones, and this is a situation that should be dealt with like that.
Thank you, Nathan.
We have 3 minutes left, and next we have Jim Smuin.
So you have 3 minutes. Thank you for being here.
Okay, it shouldn't take 3 minutes.
Okay.
And thank you for having this tonight. And then also thank you to the people who contacted us and let us know that this was going on tonight. So, Mayor, we moved here 3.5 years ago, and it's to be by grandkids. Karen has 2 grandkids here. I have 2 up in Milwaukee. We moved here from Salt Lake. So obviously we've been walking our dog down there, and we just picked that up here. So early September of last year, I had my dog Jack. We were up doing our typical 1.5 miles. We were going down Michael Book. As we went on Michael Book to turn down 11th, 3 dogs came up the street. So as they came up, I noticed they were very large dogs. They're on the opposite side of the street, which would be the south side. And as we went to turn the corner, the darker one turned and saw us and then started coming after us. So I heard a low growl. I heard the other 2 turn, saw them turn. So I have my dog now by the collar, putting him behind me because, of course, he's growling. So at this point, all I can do is yell at him. The one got close enough that I tried to kick him. At this time right there, we were very lucky. A car coming up the street came in at that dog, close to the dog, honked again, and the dogs ran away. So after hearing all of this, we were very, very lucky, because I'm sure this would have been pretty serious, because I would have fought the dogs. Jack's part of our family. So after this happened, I came home, called the police department, very polite, and they said, we don't have animal control. They would take the message that this happened. And then a couple days later, didn't want to walk up there. I'm going along Birch, went up 7th to, I think it's Elm, where you get up there and it turns. And there was a police officer there in the SUV, very polite. Very politely told me that I needed to slow down, that they had some dogs trapped or in a corner there in somebody's backyard. So I walked around the corner, looked, same dogs. So I walked back to him and told him those are the dogs that came after us a couple days ago. And from what I understand from that neighbor, they had killed a deer in the backyard. That neighbor explained to me that very concerned about that because his kids feed the deer, his grandkids come and feed the deers. So at that point, I'm buying dog repellent so I can keep walking, but I don't want to walk in that area again. We had heard the howling, didn't know what it was. So coming off of that, another walk that I'm taking, came across a woman with a large dog and said, you better watch out, you know, there's these bigger dogs down there. She says, oh, I'm ready for this, and lifted up her sweater. She had a gun. She was carrying a gun, and this gun was being taken to protect her from these dogs. Now, what could go wrong in that situation? That concerns me a lot, that was happening. So I'm grateful that we're all here tonight. I know that you guys will take a real long look at this situation, because it doesn't take much for those dogs and a kid trying to protect his dog for that kid to be killed. So I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody that spoke and that sent in letters. We did read them all, and we will continue to read them that are coming in. We at the city did hear what happened and have been working on it, and I'm going to ask Chief Wood to give us an update. Is it working?
I think so, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So since learning about this event, I guess let me back up. I just want to dispel the notion that these are low priority incidents. There are times when these incidents get prioritized lower than other calls for service that are life safety related, but we take them very seriously, and I don't want there to be a perception that we don't take this seriously. Since learning about this, there's been some pretty constant communication between the police department and other city departments trying to craft a long-term resolution to the situation. The dog owner in this instance was charged the night of the event, and that's the starting point for us for crafting a long-term solution to the situation that folks were here to speak of tonight. So I'm not going to be able to resolve the situation right now today in this moment as we sit in this room, but we are working towards that resolution at the department and other city departments.
Yep. So what I'm gonna, we can't answer that. We have some changes that need to be made or looked at, and to look the legality of it, and we're working on that. I promise you, we were talking about it and figuring out how we can do this. And
Point of order, please.
I totally understand. Chief, no, I'm sorry. I have to. I understand, and I totally understand, and I appreciate it. And I'm not saying we're not doing anything. We're saying we are, and we got it today, and we're working on it today, and you will hear soon. We're working on it. We're working on it.
No more words. We need action.
Mr. Strickland, I appreciate listening to you, and you had your time, and don't treat me as if I'm not trying, because we are, and I'm not telling you we're not doing anything. We are.
We're out here dying.
We don't see a time. And Chief Wood will put one together, and we'll get back. No, it'll be I appreciate that. I'm sorry. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. You can still email us, and we will read every one of them. And Chief Wood is working on that with our city attorney, and we will respond to you and let you know where we're at. We just have to follow the legalities for the city to take care of it.
They're already on the books.
Mr. Strickland, I'm not going to ask you again. You had your time, and if you want to blurt it out again, you'll need to leave. You're welcome. Thank you. We're going to move on now to Visit McMinnville annual presentation from the CEO and President Dan Gibson. Dan, I'd like to bring you up for your presentation. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We're going to just take a couple minutes
Yeah,
to
yeah.
let things clear out so we can hear you.
I'm used to people leaving when I I'm going to speak.
talk?
But this
I'm
is
sorry about that.
This is a little rough, but yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, you're on.
Oh, great. My name is Dan Gibson. I'm a resident of McMinnville, and I'm proud to be the CEO of Visit McMinnville since October, and I have with me.
I'm Hallie White. I'm the chair of the Visit McMinnville Board.
Welcome.
So, interesting enough, our annual presentation still comes up in May, but when we do present the budget for the next fiscal year. But I did, as new to McMinnville and to Visit McMinnville, I wanted to just create a little bit of a clean slate, so at least have a discussion topic about what we're doing at Visit McMinnville and how that works together with the city. I did want to thank the mayor, councilpersons, and city staff, and the audience, including my very cool wife, Tara, who's, and much of our staff who is here today. We can go to the next slide. All right, excellent. Oh, you know what, let me preface this. One of the things that comes up a lot when I'm talking to people in the community is they say, well, how much tax money do you get? Well, I'm aware that most of the people in the dais here understand it, but just for clarity for people at home or people in the audience who may not know, our funding comes from a transient lodging tax, which is applied to hotel rooms in McMinnville and short-term rentals. So by and large, most McMinnvillians, what do we land on? Okay.
McMinnvillians.
Great. Don't end up paying these taxes. A percentage of that money goes to the state organization, Travel Oregon. A percentage goes to Visit McMinnville for our marketing work, and then 30% of that tax goes to the city's general fund. So the upside is this money is coming from people not from here that supports people who are from here. Makes a better McMinnville for us all. I wanted to talk a little bit about just the last year, the calendar year in tourism. It wasn't an exceptional year for tourism across the country. Occupancy in hotels was flat nationwide. ADR, average daily rate, the average rate paid for a room was slightly up. In Oregon, it was both occupancy and daily rate were slightly up. The Willamette Valley as a whole outperformed the nation in occupancy and both the country and the state on rate. But it was a little bit of a challenging time for tourism as a whole. After the pandemic, people were very motivated to travel. They were wanting to get out of their houses and see things. It was also a really good time for destinations like McMinnville because they weren't going to be in deeply crowded areas. The appeal of a destination that was smaller, that had a lot of outdoor opportunities, was super motivating for a lot of travelers. That has moved back, and then as the tension of the election and other things happened, it has created a little bit of a challenge in tourism that people are less motivated to travel because they feel like they have less extra money. That makes what we do harder. But that being said, I still think there are plenty of opportunities for our city. The next slide, please. This kind of does cover that. The main thing we talk about in tourism is a term called RevPAR, revenue per available room. It's how much does a hotel room earn every single day, whether it's filled or not. You take the total of what the hotel earns over the month, you divide it by the number of rooms and the number of days, and you get revenue per available room. You can adjust rate by, you can adjust occupancy by changing rate. You can change rate by, you can raise the rate by just deciding to raise the rates. But RevPAR is sort of the sweet spot in the middle of what a hotel room is actually earning. And the colors are a little bit sketchy there, but you can see it in the handout. 2022 was particularly great. 2023, slightly less great for McMinnville, and 2024 off a bit as well. Then the next slide is AirDNA, which is the same metric but for short-term rentals. 2022 was amazing, that green line right up there bursting through the bubble. There were months in 2023 and 2024 that outperformed 2022, but in general, as you see at the tail end, December there, it was significantly higher in 2022, with 2023 and 2024 lagging behind. Next slide. So I did want to talk a little bit about what I've been doing here. It's been, when I came here for my job interview, I'm an Oregon State graduate, so familiar with Oregon as a whole, but when I came here for the job interview, I called my wife right away, and I said, regardless whether I get this job or not, we should move to McMinnville. I thoroughly believe in this destination in the sense that once you get here, it's very easy to fall in love with it. The catch is that people have relatively infinite options to travel or to not travel. We are competing with people's errands. We're competing with the things they have to do every weekend. We have to convince people, A, to travel, and that the value proposition is meaningful for them. But for me, coming here, the value proposition I'd prove to this community was that I care about it and that I want what's best for it. And that I'm passionate about it. The very first weekend, I went to the firefighters breakfast and a Linfield football game, which was a really good choice all around. Somebody was nice enough in the community to give me an upgraded seat, so I sat in a better spot. That commitment is, my daughter is at Mac High, my wife is working at Linfield. You know, we're trying to embed ourselves in the community as much as possible. I was thankful enough to be appointed to MURAC. It's been really one of the most rewarding things is working together with the other economic development and organizations in this community, including John Olson, who did a great job today. And then meeting with all these other tourism interests, which there are many of them, and several of you on the dais as well. We own a Linfield beanie, which is pretty exciting. I did have to update this. We were 2 for 4 at winning trivia at Mac Market. We did tie last week, so it's kind of 2 for 5, but I think it's still going pretty well. It's not super relevant to the job, but I was just proud of it. Next slide, please. As anybody in this room knows, budgets are the most challenging part. The budget is a story we tell about what our priorities are. When I got here, I just wanted to make sure that we were doing as much as possible to get our budget under control and to be spending as much money marketing the destination as possible. We've had these challenging years. We have to make up for that by doing the work to bring people back. The basics of this industry are heads in beds, right? We need to get people in our hotel rooms, spending money in our community. None of this is easy or fun, but I just want to make sure we understand how serious we were about this work, was ending our outdoor advertising contract, ceasing publication of Crush, which was a really exceptionally well done monthly magazine we were making for the community, closing a bunch of digital accounts and subscriptions we didn't need, and then establishing new credit card policies to make sure that our spending is being tracked and that we have a little extra amount of accountability to what is being spent and when. We had a relatively significant hole to dig out of economically as an organization, but I am proud to say that we got back to zero. We are now working within the means of our budget, and we'll be ahead of, we'll have money left over at the end of the year instead of a deficit, which was what was initially projected. The next slide, please. And this is our team. It's an exceptional, it's humbling and an honor to work with these people who are just exceptionally talented, who do incredible work every day. Lee, James, and Lisa are here. Ashley is probably posting something on Instagram right now. She's so good at it. What makes this job appealing, besides McMinnville, is just the opportunity to work with great people. And the staff of Visit McMinnville has been incredibly supportive and helpful in doing the right work and promoting this destination. You cannot find people who care more about this space than the people that I work with. The next slide, please. I wanted to make sure I checked. I saw this brochure online. I wanted to make sure it was McMinnville, Oregon, and not McMinnville. There's another one, I guess, that no one cares about. But I checked. It's somewhere. It doesn't matter. But that is classic McMinnville, Oregon brochure. What we're doing the rest of the fiscal year, just to keep you in contact with it. Our PR efforts, we've been making sure that we promote McMinnville events to both Portland media and regional and nationwide media as appropriate. We're currently working with Travel Oregon to leverage our local James Beard Award semifinalists. Let me just, as a note there, to have 2 James Beard nominees, semifinalists in this community, and if you count Amity in Yamhill County, well, Amity is in Yamhill County, but you know what I mean. If you counted it, we have more, there is no city our size that has that type of culinary recognition right now, period. And that's that's an award, which is nice. People like awards, but the quality of the food and the quality of the creativity of people, both in the food and wine space in this community, is remarkable. And every time we introduce people to it, they're blown away. And so it's just an incredible asset across the board, whether that's people at the highest level of recognition, like Kari and Sarah, but to just getting an incredible pastry at Alchemist Jam or a great cup of coffee somewhere. It's amazing all around. We're doing limited print advertising. The thing we want to make sure with our print advertising is that we're able to track it. We purchased full page print ad in the Travel Portland Visitor Guide. If somebody's coming to Portland, we want to make sure they're coming to McMinnville. But as part of that, we also got a free, nothing's free in publishing, but in the travel issue of Seattle Met coming up, which allows us to market to that area as well. We're doing targeted digital advertising. This is the least visible work. If you're seeing one of our ads, we're kind of doing it wrong. You probably should. We want to make sure it's people outside of the market who are seeing the digital work we're doing. But that's we're building up our newsletter and Instagram audiences to make sure that we can do the data work that goes along with that. Group sales initiatives. There isn't currently a lot of DMOs have a group sales person or somebody who does that sort of work. We don't, just because of the size of our staff. But we do want to make sure that we can bring as many events into McMinnville as possible. A little bit of that work has been literally when I see an event that is around in our surrounding area, just calling them and asking them why it's not in McMinnville, which has worked better than you might imagine, to be honest. They're just like, yeah, that's a great question. Why isn't it in McMinnville? I'm like, let's make that happen. So we've been working on that. But also to make sure that people know that we have great places to have weddings, that we have great places to have their business meetings, that whatever it is, we may not have the most predictable spaces for these things, but we can offer you the world-class cuisine, great spaces, and incredible hospitality. Next slide, please. 25-26, the first part of our vision for the next fiscal year, and we'll talk about this more in May when we present the budget, is really transforming our digital presence. Our website looks cool. I was really excited about it when I got here, and then you look at the back end, it is a fast car that barely works, to be honest, which is just over time. We have to rebuild it and make sure that it's based on an idea that we can track people as they go through a journey. We don't want to be just about people showing up on our website. We want to make sure that we know whether our marketing is working and whether they're booking a hotel or whether they're signing up for our newsletter or whether we're able to send them a visitor guide, that we can track people through that customer journey. It is deeply creepy work. Nobody wants to be tracked on a website, but that being said, we want to make sure that we're spending the money to get to the right people and that they're actually staying in our amazing properties. That's the main thing, is a data-driven approach to measuring effectiveness, tracking website traffic, the user behavior conversion rates, just to make sure we're making database decisions about the work that we do. The other part of that is, we want to make sure that we use a language of talking about return on investment. Visit McMinnville got a little bit away from that, I would say, and partially that was just the wild success of the last few years. We want to be able to come to this meeting and say, each dollar that comes to our organization is turning into this many dollars. I wish I had that number for you right now. We haven't been gathering the data to tell the story that way, but our goals in the next budget, when we come here in May, we'll have a number that says this is what we're going to do we're going to multiply the money, because that's what's fair to everyone involved, right? Our money is set aside by state statute, but still it feels like local money. Not just in the 70% that goes to our organization, but we have an opportunity and responsibility to make that 30% as large as possible. So that's more of the language that we'll be using going forward. Really, at the end of the day, it's telling the right story to the right audience at the right time. Next slide, please. The other part of that is strengthening community partnerships. We need to make sure that we have an incredible team doing marketing and a really great community-based group of people. But part of that is we have to share that knowledge with businesses. A lot of businesses in McMinnville are, to their great charm and credit, are single or two-person businesses. A lot of the retail, many of the restaurants are small businesses just that are doing the work, being great at what they're good at. Left by West, make sure that they have very fancy, nice smelling things that I like to buy. They may not be great at marketing. They actually are. That's not fair, but still, nonetheless. We need to do more to share the information that we have, to let people know what tourists are looking for in their websites, in their Instagrams, that their hours are visible sometimes. But we need to share that knowledge better. And that's one of the things John Olson and I have been working on, is to find opportunities to share that information and collaborate. A great place to live is a great place to visit. We want to support initiatives that improve public spaces, enhance recreational opportunities, and promote cultural events. Obviously, Quarry Park has come up a bunch in the last couple meetings. It's been exciting to go watch a Zoom and just make, oh yeah, they're talking about us. Oh, also about us, also about us. That's a conversation, right? I mean, obviously there have been plans that have been proposed, but this is still a conversation between community and the city and us, and what we can accomplish together. What has been sort of interesting is there's sort of like people who are describing things about Quarry Park where I'm like, that's actually in the plan. That's what we're actually for. And then people are saying things that aren't in the plan. It's complicated, but it's still, Quarry Park and anything we're involved in, we want to operate with as much transparency as possible. If anybody ever has a question about something, they're confused about what's happening, they can call or email our offices and we will do our best to explain it. Continuing brainstorming collaboration with our economic development colleagues. I think this is where Visit McMinnville and our other organizations can work best, is in combining our resources as much as possible. The story we tell about tourism is functionally the same story we tell about economic development. Why do you want to be here? Why is this place appealing to you? And so working with our economic development partners, the work we do in marketing is it has connections with the chamber. It has connections to what happens in the city. So there have been really excellent examples of that, both before I've been here and during my time. We just want to keep working together to amplify our work as best as possible. None of us are flush with cash, have as much to do as much as we would like, but that's where the power of having passionate people who care about the community working together to do the best we can for everyone. And working with local education partners and workforce development, that's partnering with Mac High, that's partnering with the community college. We want to make sure that as our tourism business expands with local hotels, in various planning stages, that those hotels have great employees to do that work. That restaurants have great staffing to do what they do well. It is an amazing business. I did not know that this was a job before I got into tourism. It's been an honor to talk to young people and just be like, what you think tourism is, or what you think hospitality is, can be an infinite number of possibilities. And having the opportunity to share that. I'm planning on keeping this job, so they're going to have to find a different one, but still, I'm happy to connect them to the amazing things happening in tourism. Next slide, please. These are some of the projects we've been collaborating with. Lee McCollins is an incredible graphic designer and a great marketer, and so every time he makes something, it looks beautiful and perfect. So we try to lend him out to work on projects like Sprout Summit, Mary McMinnville, Flavor of the Foothills. We have a great team, and they're great at telling a story. So it's just how can we engage them the best to do that for this community. Next slide, please. I believe, a shockingly easy person to find. You can yell my name into the wind and I'll try to answer, but my email is there, my phone number. If people would like to reach me, I'm always happy to talk about what we do and how we can help businesses bring in tourists and improve our economy as a whole. Hallie, I just talked the whole time, sorry.
I'm mostly just here for moral support for Dan, but happy to answer questions.
It's appreciated, yeah.
Any counselors have any questions?
I will just say, in the moments when I've needed to communicate with you, especially when we're hearing a lot of feedback about Quarry Park, regardless of the position, I just want to say thank you for your quick response and turning me in the right direction.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's interesting being adjacent to the city and not in it at times of the way that this work is done, but all that we can do to work together. It's an incredible place with incredible people, and all we can do is try to do the best we can for them.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Chemeketa bond measure for May 2025. We have a presentation. President and CEO Jessica Howard to present. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Jessica Howard. I'm the president of Chemeketa Community College, and I'm joined by Brigitte Reisling. Dr. Reisling is a resident of Yamhill County and is here representing the Friends of Chemeketa. And there are also some amazing Chemeketa folks in the audience here. Our Board of Education member, Ron Pittman, who is a longtime McMinnville resident and represents Yamhill County on our Board of Education, and our two incredible deans who help essentially direct the Yamhill Valley campus, and they're extraordinary, Paul Davis and Russell Jones. So I appreciate all of them being here. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the council. I was here not that long ago. Some of you may remember, and what you will see on the screen is reminiscent of what you saw before. We are going out again for a bond measure. As you know, we went out in November and we were not successful. I do have some data and sort of lessons learned from that effort to share. But before I get there, just as a quick refresher, I just want you to know Chemeketa, of course, is your community college. We're the second largest in the state of Oregon in terms of students served, between 17,000 and 18,000 every single year. Everyone that you see on the slide is an actual student, and we're extremely privileged to be able to serve Yamhill County along with Marion Polk and a portion of Lynn up the canyon. So let's go to the next slide. We're very proud to be your community college. This is the slide you would have seen last fall when I came to visit. One thing I'd like to mention again, and that simply is the $8.50 return, which is a 1 to 8.5 return, and which is an extremely, I think, revealing single metric of how we deploy our resources wisely for the benefit of students, for the maximum benefit of the students that we serve. The Oregon average among all 17 community colleges is a 1 to 5.2. And so that difference there, I think, is quite telling. And when one is going out for a bond and asking the voters for support, I think it's incredibly important to notice how well we do manage the resources that we have. The other thing I'd like to point out on this slide is it's a new thing, and it's right there at the bottom. It says BSN. That's Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Chemeketa is helping to lead a consortium of community colleges in the state to offer the RN to BSN degree. This is in response to what is really of an incredibly pressing healthcare workforce need. I don't think I need to remind anyone here of what it's like going to a healthcare provider these days and understanding that we have workforce shortages. And so growing our own and providing options for our students to have local, affordable pathways to quality healthcare education and credentials is absolutely critical. And I'm pleased to say that we have the endorsements of a number of hospitals in our region for our bond. And I believe we've been in conversations with Willamette Valley Medical Center along those lines, and we're, I think, very close to getting that endorsement as well. So we work extremely closely with our healthcare partners, and very, very proud of this particular effort. It will start next year in 2026. So really an incredible landmark offering for the state, quite frankly, and obviously for our region. So wanted to just point that out. Let's go to the next slide. So this is a key part of the story. In 2008, the voters of our district approved a bond levy for $92 million, and you see all the projects that funded. And one of them was the large, beautiful building at the Yamhill Valley campus here in McMinnville. All of the pictures on the slide are from the capacity that was created by that bond. Tens of thousands of students have received training in emergency services, manufacturing, engineering, technology, welding, general education, and more because of that investment by the community. And because Yamhill really was sort of the jewel in the crown of that effort, I just remind all of us of how fortunate, how much that benefited this community. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that obviously we knew that that 2008 bond would at one point be paid off, be completely retired. And we wondered if we were going to go back out and ask voters to consider another bond measure, why would we do that? What is the compelling reason? And we spent over 2 years doing those external community conversations, including here in McMinnville. We asked, what are we doing right? What can we do more of? What is the workforce development that's crucial? I want to just I think it's wonderful that I happen to follow Visit McMinnville and also the incomparable John Olson, who I don't know if I know I won't be as succinct as he was. I'll try to be a fraction of how persuasive he was. But workforce development really is one of the most essential aspects of why you have a strong community college. And things like tourism and wine studies and hospitality, we have very robust programs in those topics. And we have very, very strong partners like Evergreen Museum and like Visit McMinnville. And so this is something that I think is very pertinent to our region. The workforce development came out strong in these conversations, and what we heard was keep doing it, keep understanding where the workforce gaps are, and please help us meet those gaps. If we don't have the workers and we don't have the ability to train our local workforce and the students coming up through our high schools, then they're not going to stay. And this is part of the vitality of the community going forward. Obviously there are some other things on the slide, but the lessons learned from the 2024 effort is what I'd just like to comment on briefly. So, as you know, the measure was not successful. In December, we went back out and we did a survey of representative voters. So the same sort of demographic and geographic composite picture of who voted in November, and we did a survey of that slice of our voting district, and we found 3 salient facts. 1, we found out that 40% of voters did not realize it was a renewal bond. They thought it was a brand new tax. Had they known it was a continuation of the existing tax rate, that would have switched their vote. So they didn't hear that piece. We couldn't cut through, as if you may recall, there was a lot going on in November. A lot in Measure 118 was on the ballot. There was a lot of advertising and advocacy going on. We couldn't cut through that. I'm not sure we could have really, unless we'd had a friend who gave us untold millions of dollars. I don't think there was any way we could have done that. However, finding that fact out has made us even more clear about this on this go-around. This does not change the property tax rate. So that's the number one fact. The second one was about 20% of the voters said they didn't know what the bond was for. So again, a communication issue, and actually the bond consultant said he thought that was low because most people don't say, I didn't know what I was voting on or against, right? So there was a sense that we just did not, the message did not get through, and that whole workforce development feature and focus of this bond was not understood. Finally, we heard that the community is incredibly supportive of the college. Ironically, it's even more supportive of the college post-election than it was beforehand. So the message was, we love the college, we appreciate the college, it has tremendous penetration in our communities. We don't want another tax, however. And so in this case, we're being much more clear about what this is all about going forward. Next slide. We'll do this quickly. You can see here the 2008 bond and the 2025 bond. While the amount is actually different, and that's because of the number of properties and the appreciation of the tax values of the property values, the actual tax rate is exactly the same. And that's the point, that the tax rate will not change by supporting this bond. And let's go to the next slide. What would it actually do for the community? Here's our number one message: cutting-edge career and technical education. So we're talking about the trades. We need to get into more construction in particular. But we also have existing apprenticeship programs that need a lot more space. We're also doubling the capacity for paramedic programming. There's a huge, huge need for paramedics in our community. And specifically here in Yamhill County, we are going to be expanding in emergency services particularly. We're also looking into more early childhood education and things like that. And we already have health care, but we're always looking to expand that. So this has a direct impact here in McMinnville. Next slide. This refers to teaching and learning spaces all across our district. They all need to be upgraded. The easiest way I can make this point is to ask how many people are using a phone that's 15 years old. My guess is no one who's actually communicating well. This is absolutely critical. We have to upgrade every single one of our teaching and learning spaces to keep up with the technological changes. Next slide. This is about health and disaster preparedness. That picture on the left is the Santiam fire, and we hosted the incident command for that fire. And that particular structure is perfectly situated to provide disaster preparedness for the community. That's a focus of this bond. Go to the next one. Safety and security on campus, again, a direct impact and improvement for our Yamhill Valley campus here. Parking lots, HVAC units, all the things that, as you know, this is all about maintaining the investment that the community's already made in us. Next one. Improved science opportunities. This is a very specific component of the bond. We're going to be creating a science lab at the Woodburn Center because there is no science lab there, and that's required for the 2-year degree. You'll be happy to know the Yamhill Valley campus already has science labs, and beautiful ones at that. Next one. This is our last slide. Supportive environments for students. I don't know if any of you have seen the recent educational snapshot of some of the educational challenges that our students are having post-COVID. 4th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, we are not on track. And so these students ultimately end up coming to us, and we need them to be successful. Offering the programs does not necessarily mean getting them through the programs. So while this looks a little bit like a sleeper slide, it could be one of the more important ones. Tutoring centers, writing centers, math labs, all the things that actually get students to the finish line. And then my final slide, which is, thank you so much for listening to the presentation. This is our renewal bond. It will not change the tax rate, and it's really all about continuing that workforce development. And then very, very briefly, I'll turn it over to Dr. Reisling.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Brigida Reisling, and I am part of the Friends of Chemeketa Community College, and I'm also a resident of Yamhill County. And just a small bit of background. So for the last 7 years, I've shared my time between Lincoln County, where I just retired as president of the community college there. And now that I'm a private citizen, I can do things like support worthy causes like this and do the kind of advocacy that as a public employee, Dr. Howard cannot. So I want to echo everything that was said here. I have seen the impact, and we were very lucky to just pass a bond in Lincoln County for very similar work, a replacement bond. And I have to say the support of our local entities and things like the Chamber of Commerce really help, because when that voter pamphlet, when people look at it, they want to see what do our local organizations, think about this, and do they support it. So we are really I'm here to echo the earlier call for the City Council to endorse the bond measure. And I know you all know this, but I do want to add one point that for anyone else listening, sometimes people, when they look at that tax rate, per $1,000 of value, always important to point out that is the assessed value of property. That is not the market value of property. And people, sometimes forget that. And then also, I believe there's a state $8 million.
There is. It will allow us to make use of an $8 million match.
So for which there's a match
For the state.
required. So by the investment of renewing this bond brings an additional $8 million of state fund into the local economies as well. So there's few times as opportune as this to be able to do this kind of work and really invest in immediate returns for the community, but also building for the future and for the people that will be sitting here in the next 20 years. So thank you very much. I'm delighted to be part of Yamhill County.
Thank you so much.
Any questions?
Any counselors have any questions?
I do.
Counselor Cunningham?
Thank you very much for coming in. The question I had was, so when we are speaking with our constituents, they ask us, what's the bond about? What could we see here? My question would be, it sounds like that the stuff that would primarily happen here in McMinnville would be additions to programming, some slight upgrades to the buildings themselves, and then some safety concerns and stuff like that. Is that a good?
I would say more than slight. All of the upgrades that any location would get in terms of building maintenance, so everything from HVAC to parking lots to changes in digital technology, all of that would benefit Yamhill Valley campus as well. But then specifically, we're adding some career and technical education.
Okay, great. Because obviously the big one would be in 2008 bond, we got a big building out of it. So what are we going to get? Another big building would be a question I could see somebody asking. And I guess the next thing is, and I know that it's more of a statement or a suggestion, but I think we would love, and our community would strongly benefit from a much bigger hotel management, hospitality, and culinary program brought here. I know that we have an excellent culinary program here at the Mac High, and in order to move on and move up into other further education, they have to look outside of Chemeketa. So we'd love to, partner with you guys and figure out how we can develop a much more robust hospitality program.
So just because you mentioned that, our entire tourism and hospitality program is online. So it's just as available here as it is in Salem. And it works apparently extremely well in that modality. So everything we offer for that is available here like everywhere else in our service district. In terms of culinary, I think we are exploring that option.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Maybe we can have some more James Beard award-winning chefs coming from our local population.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Thank you, Mayor. So first, I'd like to say I'm not normally a fan of taxes. As those who know me know that's my position in general. I think taxes that are in the frame of building our society like education does are important, and I think maintaining the current tax level is not something that I horribly object to, given what it can provide for our community. One question I would have, and I don't take this as a criticism, but I was very surprised at the lack of PR campaign that I saw in November. So I guess my question would be, outside of reaching out to partners, what is that going to look like for May? Are we going to see more effort put into sending the message loud and clear that this is a continuation tax, not an ad tax?
It's an excellent question. Any employee of the college is not able to advocate. And some of the terminology that you just used, I can't really use. However, the Friends of Chemeketa can use that verbiage all day long. And so when we talk about who gets to send out which messages, any kind of advocacy has to be paid for by dollars from outside the institution. So that all has to be raised privately, and then that is what funds the direct mail campaigns, et cetera. Given the fact that the May ballot is something like 27 or 28% of the people vote in May as opposed to in November, it means that our dollar goes a lot farther. And so we're expecting that it'll be a lot more obvious what the messages are, particularly that one, which is about keeping that tax rate the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I would just add more shortly, yes. So as an advocate, just came from a meeting prior to this and discussing exactly your question, how will the messaging and the outreach strategy be modified to really clarify continuation and workforce development and some localized efforts for, Yamhill County and, the other counties as to what's most relevant there. So I think that was recognized as something that could have been more robustly promoted. However, comments about all the noise in the November, it was pretty difficult to get messaging through. But I'd say there's a very dedicated team of volunteers behind this that are passionate about this, and there's also fundraising. And we just hope that you will join the host of endorsers that will appear on the ballot.
Yeah, I'm never a fan of tax issues coming up in primary season, specifically because you have such a low turnout. I like to have a wider swath approval. On the other hand, I get your point. And do understand why that you also don't want to be competing against other bonds that might be on the fall ballot. So appreciate you coming forth. You spoke my language when you talk about having a match out there. I call that, sometimes that's also another way to look at it, as kind of a buy down. You're getting a better value for the dollar. So appreciate all that you brought forward. Thank you.
Anybody else? Nope. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Next, we will now begin the public hearing process of the agenda. For all public hearings being heard this evening, please state your first and last name and address for the record. Each person testifying will be allotted 3 minutes for their testimony. The public hearing to consider resolution number 2025-07, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 23-24 and making appropriation transfers. Does any counselor need to declare a potential conflict of interest or recuse himself regarding this resolution? Seeing none, I call on Katie Henry, Finance Director, to give a presentation on the topic.
So this public hearing is required per ORS 294.473 and is only pertaining to one fund within this resolution. So I want to clarify, this hearing has to do with the Affordable Housing Fund. It is required when the proposed amendments to the budget exceed 10% of the currently adopted budget. This has happened in this budget amendment for adjustments related to the Navigation Center, and it has to do with timing. So we are using ARPA funds for this Navigation Center, and it was not completed in the fiscal year that the funds were originally appropriated for. So in order for us to move those funds over to the current year, it requires a supplemental budget. That supplemental budget, with this being the only thing happening in that fund and that fund being relatively small, then requires a public hearing. So this public hearing is in regards to the Affordable Housing Fund portion of that resolution. And the amount for that is $325,754.
Turn this on. Does any counselor have any questions of staff? Counselor Chenoweth?
Sorry, I turned it on before I moved it, so you got that grinding, crunching noise. Yeah, so is this 325,000 part of what we originally allocated, or is there any additional funds that are being allocated beyond what we initially allocated for the project?
I apologize. The ARPA resolution is coming later, so I'm trying to look and see, and I believe I'm going to defer to Heather to answer that question.
Well, I don't know if it has the ARPA funds in it.
It does. It has the final ARPA.
Okay, great. So yes, this is the number that includes both the what had originally been allocated to the project, as well as the additional ARPA funds that you're going to be looking at tonight for the project. That includes the settlement agreement that's been approved. As we all know, we thought the project would be concluded last fiscal year. It wasn't concluded. It rolled over. And we make estimates about next year's budget now in terms of what's happening. So we hadn't anticipated that.
So that was, other than the settlement agreement, there's no added funds.
Right, well, so what you have next is a resolution that looks at the ARPA funds for each project that you originally approved, one of which is the Navigation Center, and you originally approved $500,000 for that out of the city ARPA funds. There is a resolution that looks at increasing that original $500,000 allocation to $635,000, so an additional $135,000. That additional $135,000 includes the $75,000 settlement that City Council approved in December, and then it also includes the legal expenses associated with our legal journey that we've had and been underway with since June of last year.
Okay.
Any additional, Councilor Tchaikovsky?
Yeah, I have a single question.
Okay.
So you said that we're moving 326,000 from last fiscal year to this next fiscal year, is that correct?
We are increasing the total appropriation by the $325,000. Most of that is coming from last year, and then we have the additional settlement and the legal fees, which are being added on to that.
Right, I understand.
So it's both pieces. There's a piece coming from last year, and then there's a piece that we're adding on to add together to the $325,000.
Okay. So this might be a basic question, but when we approved those funds at the same time last year, we now have a clearer picture of what we really needed to finish the Navigation Center. Do all of those funds actually need?
Yeah, maybe I can help answer this a little bit. And this might be where Councilor Chenoweth was going as well. So the project, we have 4 different funding sources that have funded this project, and those funding sources have accumulated over the last, when did we get the 1.5, 2021 maybe? The last 4 years. So we had a static amount that we knew that the project would cost, and so we've always been building the project towards that static amount of those 4 different funding sources, so 4 different grants. The number that's carrying over from last year is part of those 4 grants, that static amount. We just didn't expend it last year because we weren't done with the project yet. The additional $135,000 that we're talking about tonight to add to the ARPA grant that the city provided to the project is the additional costs associated with the legal issues that we've been experiencing with this project since June. We have tried to estimate what that will be so that we're capturing the expending authority for it. We are not done with the legal journey.
I understand.
Yeah.
So just back to the basic question though, are we certain that the 326,000 is what we need to transfer in order to continue making that happen?
We are not certain as far as the legal expenses. This is our best estimate at this time.
Okay. Have we gone back and looked to find out what we should be transferring, or is this just completely estimated?
So the number, in terms of our current obligations, this meets the current obligations of everything that we've incurred thus far, and it also tries to estimate some future obligations in terms of legal expenses over the next couple of months.
That answered my question. Thank you.
And if we don't spend it?
It doesn't get transferred. This is just gives us
wait
the
till it's time.
authority to transfer it if those bills come in.
Got it. Thank you. Any other counselors? Questions? Counselor Geary?
Yeah, so understand that pot of money and then the $325,000 is ARPA funds, and I see other resolutions coming down the pike, but why, and forgive the basic question, why is it a affordable housing fund categorized proposed change and budget hearing?
The budget here, the project is held within the Affordable Housing Fund because of those other 3 funding sources. Am I correct?
Yeah, so the project's in the Affordable Housing Fund because it's an affordable housing project, and that's where we dropped the funds to build the project. The ARPA funds have, as we have brought projects into different departments to initiate and develop, the ARPA funds have transferred into the appropriate fund within the budget to support those projects. So we haven't had this separate fund that we've been billing out of in terms of a GL account for ARPA projects that's been transferring into the different affordable housing fund, or for instance, we're going to be doing the ADA transition plan soon. That's transferring into the economic development fund. It's going into the different funds where that work is taking place. So the affordable housing fund has always been the originator for the navigation center, and that's where the 4 different funding sources dropped. And the expenses take out there too.
Okay.
We are only required to hold a public hearing on a fund that has more than 10%. This evening, we're discussing all of the funds, and that will come later. This portion of the agenda that we're on right now is the public hearing, where we actually hear from the citizens, and the only fund we're hearing from the citizens on is the Affordable Housing Fund because of the proportion of the amount of the expenditures to the overall current appropriation for that fund.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll clarify, and I should have said this earlier, the Affordable Housing Fund is divided into 2 sub-funds. So there's a construction excise tax sub-fund that isolates all the construction excise tax that we collect and the programs that that's paying for. And then it has a grant sub-fund, which is for projects that are funded through grants that are affordable housing.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Yeah, I'm going to wander down this rabbit hole a little further, because in what I heard in the question, it led to another thought of mine that I've wondered about. So we don't have a special fund set aside just for legal type events. We have the legal type events are funded out of the fund specific to the project in which the legal event occurred. Is that what I'm hearing being said?
Yes. The expenses
shaking yes.
go along with the business line it's associated with.
Perfect. That's thank you. Thank you for going down that rabbit trail with me.
Any further questions from the council? Okay. We'll now start to hear public testimony. We will start with the people who signed up in advance to testify. Please remember to include your name and address for the record. Claudia, do we have anybody signed up to testify?
No one has signed up.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak? No. Does any counselor need anything clarified regarding the testimony of the speaker that we did not have? No. Let's see. Is there, and I already asked about Civic Hall, so does any counselor need anything else clarified at all before we move on? No. No one on Zoom, Claudia?
No one has raised their hand or sent a chat.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our public testimony for the evening. Does the staff have anything else that they would like to add to the record at this time? Or does the city council have any additional questions for city staff? Nope.
None for me at this time.
Perfect. I will now close the public hearing, 8:34. All right, now we're going to move on to reports from the counselors and on committee and board assignments, and then on to department heads. I'm going to start to my right with Counselor Cunningham.
Alrighty. Affordable Housing Committee met last Thursday. We swore in our new committee members. We had another review of an updated commercial excise tax fund application. We're getting really close, and hopefully there'll be a final review of the application on the 23rd, which then we'll bring it to City Council for our approval here. This will put into action about $1 million in funds to drive more affordable housing projects. Associate Housing Planner Evan Heppes also laid out the calendar for getting through the 2025 goals. He suggested to the committee that, and we agreed, tackling one goal per meeting was all that was possible. This month's meeting will be focused on the housing production strategy goals. 3rd Street Improvement Project, we met this Monday to discuss potential construction materials and composition, as well as fixtures such as bollards, tree wells, and of course the trees themselves. There was lots of good discussion, and we really truly do look forward to BFK and Tool Design to bring back their renderings and the selected options so that we can show them off in our next community forum this spring. Housing production strategy does meet this next week, and then MCM 11 will meet this Thursday, and it's the annual meeting, so there'll be lots to go over there. And then just on a personal note, I will be attending the Sprout Summit. So.
Councillor Chenoweth?
So, I did it again. Thank you, Mayor. So, MWACT met, and we voted in our new president and chair and vice chair, rather, for MWACT. The chair is Commissioner Mordhorst from Polk County, and the vice chair is yours truly. We started talking about setting agenda. We'll be having conversations over the next month, setting agenda on what that's going to look like going forward. MEVLC will be meeting here tomorrow. I had the privilege of going out to the North Plains Oregon Recology site where they do the food processing and the other yard debris processing all together. It kind of works like a large air hockey table. It was kind of cool. They've got lots of holes in the ground, shoots up air so it can process things faster. But seeing the size that's required and understanding the amount of money that's required to make this change happen gave me a better picture for what is needed in McMinnville if we're going to take that next step or encourage Recology to take that next step. Encourage all of our counselors to do that. It was definitely worth the trip. Don't step in the liquid. Just saying that.
Does it smell?
Your dogs will love you forever if you do. And I think that's all for me.
Councilor Peralta, I'm going to go to you.
Thank you, Mayor. The Council of Governments annual meeting was last week. I was not able to attend. That's the first one I haven't been able to go to, but I understand that Councilors Chenoweth and Tukulski attended, so I hope you enjoyed that event. The Planning Commission report has already been given, so that's all I have for this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and report. I attended monthly mayor's coffee hosted by Yamhill Mayor Shay Corrigan. We talked about relationships and working with our individual city managers. Week before last, I went to Washington, D.C. On behalf of Water and Light. As mayor, I serve as a Water and Light Commissioner. We went to talk to Congress and Senate in regards to keep protecting the low rates that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. I had my meeting with our liaison Commissioner Johnston from Yamhill County. We talked about financials, reporting, transparency, and the commercial properties that the county has and will be selling or using in the future. Councilor Gary.
Thank you. Scott gave you a good update on 3rd Street improvement. I'll just add that that was the penultimate TAC meeting, and the final TAC meeting will be on April 14th from 1 to 4 at the Kent Taylor. MURAC met, and bulk of that was also hearing from Commissioner Kit Johnston, and he rolled through the county's near-term downtown real estate transaction or plan or intent to transact plan. We walked away from that meeting, and I was wondering if Planning Director Richards could, in her update us, but to resolve to have a joint work session with MURAC Council and the Board of Commissioners in the next 30 days to discuss maybe some joint efforts in master planning that for the future of the downtown. And then Visit McMinnville and Stormwater haven't had a meeting since we've last met.
Councilor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor. The local Public Safety Coordinating Council met to review grant applications for juvenile and adult drug court grants, which were approved with a couple of grammatical changes, and that will be those three grant applications will be submitted to the Board of Commissioners of the county. Landscape review has not met since the last council meeting. The audit committee just met at 5 o'clock tonight, and report given by Morena Consulting earlier this evening at 6 p.m. The short of it is we got a clean audit, which is the highest opinion awarded. The Equity Action Work Group meets tomorrow to discuss accessing health care. The Medical Reserve Corps for the county is looking for volunteers to form a volunteer advisory board. So if folks are interested, they can, and they have healthcare backgrounds or are studying, then they can go to the county website and apply. DEIC meets Thursday. That's all I've got.
Councilor Tukalski?
Yeah, so my update on the YCOM Executive Board is our next meeting is April 8th at 3 o'clock p.m. We're working on Budget Committee at that time, selection of new Budget Committee members as well. Other than that, the YCOM Board has not yet met. On Tuesday of last week, we did have the Airport Commission meeting where I learned there's a new bulletin board out by the airport, which has a QR code on it where you can actually sign up for an email list to get updates about what's actually taking place at the airport. So if you're interested in that, I would highly recommend doing that so that you can understand what's going on. I learned a lot of things last week, but I also learned one of the 3 Jet A fuel tanks is not being used right now because it needs repaired. Repair means, in this case, cleaned out and inspected. So we're operating at 2/3 capacity there. For our jet fuel, we are working on a preparation for autonomous aircraft within the flight corridors, which will have different flight patterns than our manned vehicles. So that's something that's been in the news lately and also something that we're preparing for. I also learned that runway 1735 is potentially losing funding from the FAA for maintenance issues, so I'm going to dig a little bit further into that one to find out exactly why and what we can do to stop that. And 1735, for those that are not familiar, is the runway that's furthest away from the, I would call it Highway 18 transit corridor. So it's furthest south. There's a big orange gate that on the south end that is the one that takes you there. On Wednesday of last week as well, I attended the Mid-Willamette Valley, it's called the Council of Governments Dinner, where we did talk about, we learned about transportation opportunities, and we did have a presentation with the transportation PhD that was talking about transportation. I had the opportunity to sit with a number of folks from Yamhill County, being the mayor of Amity and Commissioner Kit Johnson, who just walked in. Nice to see you. So a little bit of an opportunity to also have conversations with folks, and that's my report for now.
Thank you. City Manager Jeff Towery.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report tonight.
I have a quick question before you move on. So sorry. I wonder if there is an update on the Muni Court software. Sorry, maybe that's a better question for Katie. In the municipal court situation right now, because last I heard there was 2 vacancies, I think.
Yes, we can get a report to you on that. You ready tonight, or you want to follow up later? Yeah, we'll follow up with that later.
Attorney David Leitenberg?
Nothing from the legal department tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Henry, do you have anything more?
Nothing more.
Okay. Director Richards?
Yes, I have a couple of items. Wanted to first invite everyone to a community forum that we're having on Saturday from 10 to 12. This is for our Innovation Campus project. We have the opportunity to come and talk about how that 200 acres should be used to provide higher density family wage jobs with upward mobility for our community in the future, as well as commercial opportunities. We will have several stations around this facility, so we'll be here at Civic Hall where people can interact with the different stations. So you don't have to come for the full 2 hours, just pop in, provide your input, get some information. And we will also have another station talking about our other planning efforts underway, including the Southwest Area Plan and our housing production strategy. We sent out a mailing for that forum to every address in McMinnville, so it will be interesting to see how that mailing is received in terms of people participating. And it's also one of our first Saturday events. So we're trying different things to try to get to try and make it available for people to be able to participate in a meaningful way. The second thing I wanted to share is you had Barbara Boyer, the chair of the Yamhill County Water and Soil District, come to you a couple of weeks ago and sort of put a flag in the sand to partner with the city on some efforts. And so I reached out to their board, and I will be meeting with them tomorrow morning to talk about what those partnerships can look like moving forward in terms of protecting our natural resources in the community. So looking forward to that dialogue and how we can partner as a city. We also, at the COG dinner on, we were part of an award that went to many cities in Yamhill County on a collaborative project that we recently just did with the private sector. It is called the Yamhill County Urban Forum. It's a website which developers can use to go onto the website. It's a GIS platform where they can go into any parcel, and on that parcel, it will bring up all the zoning requirements for that parcel in terms of the code. And here in McMinnville, it will also bring up any planned developments that are booked on that parcel. And it will talk to the developer in terms of what are the setbacks. So all the basic information they're looking for and typically calling us about is part of this GIS platform. We are also working on a GIS project internally as well that we can provide too, but we're thrilled to partner with this group, and they did it for all the cities in Yamhill County, and it's a first of its kind from what I understand. So excited to see how that serves our development community moving forward. And if you're interested and want to look at it, it's yam.urbanforum.com. And then lastly, to answer Councilor Geary's question, you just introduced that to my team. I hadn't talked to you about with this, but at the MIRAC meeting, we did have a discussion about the county's plans for their properties and surplusing them and moving their facilities around and what that looks like. And we talked about that it would be great to have a joint meeting of the city council and the county commissioners and MIRAC to really talk about how that impacts the downtown and the different goals that we all want to achieve. There was interest in doing that in the next 30 days, and I will be working with Claudia and Jeff and the county administrator to try to line that up. As I understand, a work session date just opened up, so we will get back to you as soon as we can with that.
Yes, Councilor Geary has a question.
What was that website again?
yam.urbanforum.com. If it doesn't come up, let me know. I haven't actually
Is it
tested.
form or forum?
Form, F-O-R-M,
Yeah,
like
it's not-
form-based code.
Not coming up for.
Okay, I'll send you a link.
Okay.
Chief Wood.
Nothing else from police.
Claudia?
From me.
Gio?
Excuse me, nothing from Public Works, except I did want to speak to Councilor Tukalski's comments about runway 1735. As part of our master planning process, they look at our wind data. 1735 is our crosswind runway, so it's used when the wind direction changes from our predominant east-west to north-south. The FAA has a standard that they do not fund maintenance of those facilities if the wind is not in that direction more than 5% of the time. So our wind is blowing that north-south less than 5% of the time, so that's why we're losing our funding.
That's cool. I had no idea. Thank you. Yeah.
Vicki Hedges.
I'm glad we nerded.
Nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Nothing for the council tonight. Thanks, Mayor.
Do you have anything to report either down there?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We have the consent agenda. Does any council request to have any item removed from the consent agenda and heard at its regular place on the agenda? No? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Third, Councilor Cunningham, and a second by Councilor Geary.
I had a question. Does that include the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, I actually had a correction on the minutes.
Okay, so let's pull that off. And we have February 11th and we have February 19th.
I have too many minutes open. Hold on. Yep, 1 minute, please. February 11 minutes. There's a correction on that one.
Okay, so since we have a motion on the floor, can we still amend? Okay.
Yeah.
What's your change?
So in section 6C, like Charlie, it's resolution number 2025-06. The resolution number is correct, the votes are correct, the resolution text is incorrect. So it talks about a resolution awarding professional services contract for 30% of the design of the 3rd Street Improvement Project. And resolution 2025-06 is actually authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Turf Star Western Equipment for the lawnmower.
I will make that correction.
Thank you.
Okay. So can we?
So we have a motion on the floor.
We just do a motion as amended?
Except that the amendment should have been to pull from the consent calendar. So where we sit right now is there has not been a reasonable motion amending the current motion on the table. The amendment should come to remove the February 11 minutes from the consent agenda and then close out the consent agenda vote as amended. So if that's what you were trying to do, which is what I think I understand, that amendment is what you need to bring.
Then I propose that we remove the February 11 minutes from the consent agenda.
Second.
Who is the second? Oh, hello, Sal.
Okay, now roll call on the amendment.
Okay, Claudia?
Councilor Cunningham?
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Councilor Payne? Aye. Councilor Geary?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Aye.
Now a roll call on the motion as amended.
With the motion of Councilor Cunningham and a second by Councilor Geary?
We don't need a new motion.
We don't need a new.
We have to
motion as
resolve
amended.
that one. Yeah.
We need a roll call on the initial motion to pass the consent agenda.
Got it.
As amended.
Councilor Cunningham?
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Councilor Payne?
Aye.
Councilor Geary?
Aye.
And Council President Peralta?
Aye.
And now, Mayor, if you would like, we can move on in the agenda to the item that was removed from the consent agenda and discuss it as necessary.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So I just need a motion to make that amendment.
I so
Right.
motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Note that we have now moved on to the discussion of the draft minutes for the February 11,
February 11th.
2025 meeting. And if there's no further discussion, then is there a motion? I understand there's a motion.
I so motion.
Okay. And a second from Counselor Payne. Any additional discussion? Council, can you take a poll, Claudia?
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Aye.
Counselor Payne,
Aye.
Counselor Geary,
Aye.
Council President Peralta.
Aye.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to consider resolution number 2025-07, of resolution adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 23-24 and making appropriation transfers. Call on Katie Henry, Finance Director.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So this is the portion where we're addressing the full supplemental budget. So in this, what I've tried to do in the staff report, and since you aren't used to me yet, and I'm not used to you, I'm going to kind of walk through how I typically present these things. I try to group like items together to give you a picture of what's happening in each of the areas to help you see why we're doing what we're doing. And so the first part of this has to do with engineering. We have 2 FTEs. The big thing takeaway from this piece of the supplemental budget is that there is no impact to general fund discretionary funds. So in other words, we have revenues and we have expenses that match up with each other. Although we are increasing the appropriations for the general fund, we are not asking to spend any discretionary funds or any additional taxes, service fees, any of that money. So we are proposing spending engineering fees that have come in higher than the original projected when those fees were set. And we are taking in a transfer from wastewater so that we can have a program, an engineering manager to handle the projects in wastewater. So that is what will fund these 2 positions. So that's the first piece of the adjustment. The second piece of the adjustment is for grants. Grants that are unanticipated at the time of the budget are another reason that are allowable for a supplemental budget mid-year. So we have a cybersecurity grant for $77,000 from Oregon Department of Energy Management. And then we have, from Business Oregon, we have some additional funds for the Innovation Campus of $100,000. So those are the 2 that fall into that category of unanticipated revenues that are coming in. Those revenues are coming in, and we are requesting appropriation to be able to spend those grant revenues. The third area has to do with the revised projections for items that are covered under ARPA. And this is sort of the impetus for the next resolution, was that it was difficult for me to find a clear current place where we could see all of the projects and how much was approved for each project. And there have been some changes, and we've approved this project here and this project over there and approved a contract, but I wanted to kind of get it in one place so that we could see everything. Where are we at? What do we need to finish up these projects? So this piece is in the operating budget. And I apologize if I'm being too specific, but I don't know what each of you know and don't know, so I'm going into a little bit more detail. So we have 2 budgets that we're considering here. This first resolution is the operating budget. It's the annual budget that we have the appropriations for. This is what, by budget law, we have to adopt a supplemental budget in order to spend the money, and it has to be adopted by fund. Then we have the ARPA budget. We had what we call the ARPA budget. ARPA funds were received. Those are sort of discretionary, but they're in their own separate pool. And it's at the discretion of council as to how we're spending those monies. The amount by project is determined, but these projects have multiple years that they could go by. So you may have said you can spend $1 million on this project, but it could take 5 years to finish that project. So that's why we've split them into 2 resolutions. One is a resolution concerning the current fiscal year. One is a resolution concerning all of the ARPA funds in total over all of the years of the spending. So just to clarify that. So this third piece has to do with changes in the current year spending of ARPA money. And so there's a table in the staff report that covers a summary for the different projects. This summary has to do with what are the changes going to be in this fiscal year for these different projects. So we have DEI at 46,000, I'm rounding to the thousands. Crisis Outreach Services, an additional 15,000. The Mobile Rec Station, 28,000. We had tech projects that were not done or that were able to be done under cost. Those are then reallocated up into the other projects. That's a savings of 55,000. The Recreation Center planning of 20,000. The Navigation Center that we discussed earlier of the 326,000. Stormwater capacity projects that have been delayed. We've got a savings there of 135,000, and then Third Street improvements. This is the 30% design of 235,000. So the total current year impact is 480,000. That's a combination of rollovers of money that was not spent last year that we need to add into the budget this year, and of new requests that is coming in.
So that list consists of new requests and old rollovers.
So new requests are only additions to projects that are already there. So these are projects that are underway that have gone over the original estimates that were made several years ago when the money came in. And so in order to get them to the finish line, or they did finish and they came in a few $1,000s over what they were originally projected, this brings everything in line with those projects.
I feel like I need more information. Like, what's the $46,000 for DEI?
Yeah, particularly, Mayor, if I might, we voted to support DEI and one of the specific questions asked was, would there be any money spent toward that? And the answer was no. So to see a line item now with a dollar amount on that seems to run counter to the discussion that we had in that meeting.
So this is the cost associated with the consultant contract that was granted by the council and was presented to you.
We haven't paid them yet?
Yes, we have. This is to clean up the appropriations as the projects have rolled over from year to year. But this was a contract that was approved by the city council.
And I want to, maybe Councilor Gary, I can throw him under the bus, but just given his experience and knowledge with DEIACU, but my understanding was there was funds that were allotted to that committee that was more of a discretionary fund for the committee, and I apologize, I don't remember the amount, but I just want to be clear that that's sort of coming from a committee-specific fund.
Is it the $225,000 in Exhibit A on page 74?
I don't know if you're asking about the DEI funds specifically in all of ARPA, but the funding for DEI was not all for that committee. There was funds for training for employees that's also being spent out of that ARPA funds for DEI specific activities.
Thank you.
Mayor, I had a question.
Counselor Tukalski.
I guess since we're on that subject, in Exhibit A on Resolution 2025-08, there's a line item that states HR DEI implementation for $225,000. I don't understand that. Or can someone explain that?
I think that's the ARPA funds we're talking about specifically.
That is the one that
Yeah,
you're talking about?
so that's what I was just referring to, that training. We're using some of that for our online training platform that we offer. And so part of that is coming from those DEI ARPA funds, but all of that 225 is not just for HR. Part of it is those funds for that committee.
I didn't think we were giving funds to that committee. I mean, from what?
That work, I'm sorry, that work that we did with the consultant, I know that that was coming from that line item as well. And I can't speak directly to the initiatives that Noelle's working on, but her and I are working together on that 225,000.
Okay, so I'm still just not clear. I know we had funds to do the consultant. And is this money that ended up paying off the consultant in that fiscal year, and that's what we're doing? Or is this still money that's going to be spent? Because I would assume the consultant has been paid for.
So we have paid the consultant. We are correcting the appropriations as projects have rolled over from year to year.
Right.
Most of the money has already been spent. It was authorized by previous action by the council, and what we're doing now is the formal budget action to ensure that we have the funds appropriated. Some of the projects have yet to be done. I can't tell you which things on the list will still be spent down and which things have already been spent. It's a combination.
I am almost to that place on my, it's Katie.
Thank you. I'm like, who's talking?
I had to locate Crystal's spreadsheet where she had tracked all of these things before I could answer. I apologize for the delay in getting to you. So Crystal put in a lot of work trying to help me track down what was the story behind these numbers. Like I said, they've been on and off at different places because everything was approved by council through different actions, but not kept in one document. And so it was difficult for me to follow. And so she spent a lot of time. And so what I'm looking for right now is to see on this implementation, we do not have it finalized. There was a total spent of $133,000 that predates this year. I'm assuming that's the consultant and work that we're talking about. Again, I'm assuming. If you want specific information, I will have to go back and look at the invoices associated with it. Then we have funds that are committed to be spent in fiscal year 25. In other words, work that has been done, including HR work and any invoices already paid, that amount to $70,109. In our current budget, we have $56,000 in there. And so we are truing things up. There's $15,000 for DEI training through HR. There's $14,000 for the NeoGov module to come out of there. And there is, my understanding is there's a DEI assessment that was included in that amount that had been delayed, that was previously supposed to happen in 24. The notes I have say that that was planned to be completed in 25. I and I have a question on whether that will be completed or not.
It's done. That's the consultant.
Okay. Does that answer the question any better?
Counselor Chenoweth, back to you.
I got to remember not to turn that on until I move it. So what I'm hearing is that, and we've done these kinds of things in the past, so my reticence is coming down a little bit here. But what I'm hearing you say is that this is not indicative of new spending allocated or created or decided upon on this area since December. This is previous to that agreed upon spending, and we're just truing up the numbers in our system to look like what we actually ended up spending on these projects. How did I do?
That is really darn close.
What did I miss?
You said there was some new.
Well, the only issue is that, for one, we're talking about Exhibit A, which is the one that spans multiple years, when the number that we're actually looking at in this DEI is this current fiscal year. And so I'm concerned that there may be just a little overlap between those two concerns. So the only piece that's missed is we're truing up so that the current year appropriation matches, because some of it was approved for multiple years, and the timing of what fell in one fiscal year versus the other didn't fall right on. And so now we're truing up so that the timing falls in the same fiscal year as the expenditure. Does that?
Yeah, I mean, that's more precise language than what I used. But yeah, I think I'm with you. This train is slowly getting on the track. Thank you.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Yes, Counselor Tukalski.
So just looking at Exhibit A, I assume that same logic holds for a number of these line items?
Absolutely.
Okay. So ambulance replacement for $285,000 when we don't have a fire department. Is that just truing the books?
That's water under the bridge, is my understanding.
Yeah, yes. So the ARPA list is everything that was approved by the council. Much of those funds, ambulance a perfect example, long since spent in a previous fiscal year. And the supplemental budget that's before you tonight is for the smaller pieces that are identified in the resolution. So this Exhibit A is like the master sheet of all the ARPA projects spent and some yet to be spent. You see that unallocated amount down at the very bottom. But the majority of that $7.7 million has already been spent.
Okay, so the unallocated amount at the bottom is $512,000.
That's what isn't assigned to a project that either isn't, and there are some projects that are still in the queue that haven't been spent that are expected to be spent in a future fiscal year. So you'll see some of those projects pop up in next fiscal year.
I understand. So is there a list of items where we're spending that $512,000?
No, that hasn't been decided by the council yet.
Okay.
That's a choice that the council gets to make later on.
Okay, so when it says that we're spending $364,000 on COVID, that's just backlog?
It's already been spent.
It's already been spent.
Okay.
Yeah.
The same thing with DEI?
Most of the DEI funds have been spent, and all of the funds for the consultant contract have been spent. There may still be some training funds that Vicki was talking about.
Sure.
As we've talked about the support for the NeoGov, I don't know when those payments are specifically made.
Do you know how much money we're continuing to spend on DEI?
So as I mentioned, I'm only working on those HR components, and I don't have an update from Noelle on what she's working on. Okay. The pieces that are coming out of that continual from HR are the NeoGov module and any training that we plan to conduct out of that ARPA fund, such as bias training, that kind of thing.
We can give you a project assessment of that.
I'd just be curious where we anticipate all of these funds to continue going. Yeah, thank you.
Mayor.
Yes. Counselor Payne.
Thank you. I just have one quick question. How long does the city have to spend, well, even allocate the $512,653?
We don't have any federal obligations. A couple of years ago, we actually transferred all of the ARPA dollars that had not been allocated towards specific projects. We used the lost revenue formula that was allowed in the ARPA funds, and so these are these are the funds formerly known as ARPA. We've closed out the ARPA grant with the federal government, have done all of our reporting, and because we took the money as lost revenue, we still have money to spend.
Thank you. I don't think I've seen Mark Davis ever laugh so hard. The funds formerly known as ARPA dollars. Thank you.
And I have a question on 4B. It's one vehicle was damaged beyond repair and had to be replaced. There were funds received from the insurance company, but the deductible remained to be covered by the city. So it looks like the only amount we got from the insurance company was $14,000. Was that true? Because I know sometimes our vehicles are insured in groups, not necessarily valued to each vehicle. Was that truly what
That
was
is
valued at?
true. That's after our deductible is relatively high, and that is what we got reimbursed.
Relatively.
No, 14,000 is what we got back on a $68,000 car. Yes.
I suspect there was an
I'm-
assessment of the remaining value of the car because it wasn't brand new when it got wrecked.
Right.
So there was some depreciation.
But sorry, this will be a question for another time because we're going late, but I have a question about insuring our vehicles. Okay, any other questions?
Sorry.
Sir Cunningham?
Yeah, did we make it through?
No, I stopped at 3. I
Okay.
haven't.
Yeah.
So shall I continue? So the fourth one had to do with police savings and other purchases. There have been a lot of vacancies in police. We appropriate at the department level or at the program level. I'm not sure what we call it here, but so police is a level of appropriation. And so they were able to use some of the vacancy and other savings to transfer those appropriations. So when we talk about this resolution having some appropriation transfers, some of those savings were used for a variety of different things. We have the vehicle that had to be paid for. We have some other vehicles that were purchased. We have tough books that are needing to be purchased for the officers. This is needed for compliance with CJIS requirements. The way that we're doing it right now, multiple officers are having to share a tough book as they put it in and take it out of the vehicle, which is not in compliance with CJIS, and so needing to upgrade that to become in compliance. And so I've summarized the savings and the sources of the funding for police and compared it to the new expenses. So there's no additional, again, no discretionary funds being requested for that portion of this. The fifth is the fourth. I'm doing them backwards because, well, it depends on which version you have. There was a change in it, so if you have the amended packet, we're now on number 5. The Miller property, there was a $10,000 payment that was not in the original budget, so that's just included here. And this has use of beginning fund balance for this, which brings me to item 6, which is we've included the beginning fund balances here as information. My understanding is that Typically, we have not done an amendment for all of these, but I felt it was important that you see the difference between what was budgeted for your beginning balances and what was actually there. So this last item 6 is not included in the resolution. It's just for information. So with that, we are increasing our appropriations in the general fund by $717,464, in grants and special assessments fund by $15,000, affordable housing fund by $325,754, and in the information systems fund by $99,036. And we're reducing appropriations in the wastewater services fund by $114,255. It does not impact budgeted ending fund balance in any of the funds.
Okay.
Any additional
questions? Counselor Cunningham?
Yeah, the vehicles for the police department, are those actual like cruisers or are they just other vehicles?
Patrol vehicles.
Patrol. Okay, thank you.
Do you have a question? No. Anything else? Okay, so do I have a motion to make the changes as shown for resolution number 2025-07?
So moved.
Payne?
I'll second.
Chenoweth? Claudia?
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Yeah, aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Payne?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Aye.
Resolution number 2025-07 passes by a vote of 6-0.
Yes, Counselor Payne?
Thank you. Sorry to keep keeping you here. I'm just curious what is this extra $500,000 going to be discussed at the next budget meeting, or is that going to be council discussion at a later date?
I don't know yet. Well, if we have any proposals for you to consider, part of the direction that we got from the council a year or so ago is that you wanted us to make sure that we finished the projects that had already been approved before we considered new projects. We still have projects that we'll be spending money on in the following fiscal year. And so until those projects get closer to wrapping up, we're not sure if that balance will change. Remember, the last time we did this, some projects gave back some money, some had some increases. And so the 515 is unallocated right now. It may be more or less depending on how our current projects move forward.
Understood. Thank you.
I want to make sure, though, that some of those projects we're not spending too much money on, so I would think that it would be nice to have the council take a look at that.
If we get to the point where the projects look like they're going over, we'll be back to you. That's what we did the last time.
Okay. Okay, we have one more. Are we okay to go on, you guys? One more?
Yep.
Okay. Consider Resolution 2025-08, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of McMinnville amending the allocation of American Rescue Plan ARPA funds. Katie Henry.
Thank you very much. This resolution is more to put a little bit of a line in the sand so that we can see where are we at with all of the ARPA projects, so that we can then track what has been approved, what hasn't been approved, and also to decide where do we go from here and what is the approved list. For me, coming in as finance director, I like to have a clear documented set of what projects are we working on and where is the budget at. So for me, being new, it's helpful for me to have an official document that says, these are the projects, here's a resolution that clearly documents, we are all on the same page moving forward. So what we have put together is if you're looking on the last page of your packet, so page 74, we have a list of all of the current project budgets. These have been put together by taking resolutions that were either passing contracts and approving for the items to be paid by ARPA funds, or the original budget for it. So anything official we've pulled from board minutes. Then we've taken the reports back from all the various departments on their projects. We've compared it with the financial reports. We've looked at where everything is at, and we've asked the departments for what do they still have upcoming? So what encumbrances do they have with contractors, for example? What do we have outstanding? Do we have a settlement? Do we have some upcoming legal fees, things like that, that need to be incorporated? And then those have been included in this change column, so that the proposed project budget includes what we're anticipating through the finishing of these projects. I want to remind you, though, that these are estimates. Some of these projects won't be finished for another few years, and as we've seen in the current economy, costs could go up, they could go down. We wish they would go down, but they can go up. Scope of projects may change depending on priorities. So these are estimates. You'll see some of these numbers are down to the dollar. These are items or projects that have been either completed or nearly completed. They're much more refined. Then you have other ones that are rounded to the thousands, which either are funding a portion of a project, or they're items that we don't yet have the full cost for. I think I will stop there on what I'm going to say and just answer questions if you have them.
Okay, so we have this list, and these have all been approved, or you're asking us to approve these right now?
The column on the left of current project budget is what has been approved by past council action.
But that can be changed this year, since we're talking a budget shortfall. I personally don't want to approve just these projects.
So the change there is what I'm bringing to you as the proposal for them. You can approve the resolution and approve them as presented, or you can propose changes to it, or you can not pass the resolution. Those are options that we have.
And so as Katie mentioned, many, in fact, most of the changes have been approved through other actions. And so this is really trying to bring all of the various actions forward into one place.
But there is additional money there as well. Yes. Is this something we have to do right now, or can we have an opportunity to look at this and bring it back to another council meeting? Because I would like to be able to go through this, and it's 9:30.
We'd need to know what you need from us. I mean, it's certainly council's prerogative to roll this to a future agenda, but if we don't know what your questions are or what information's not available here for you, then it's going to be tough for us to bring something forward that you can act on.
Well, I'm not saying that I have anything you need to bring forward. I need an opportunity to read it and understand and be agreeable, and then I would know what I need from you. But to give you just that based on seeing this, I can't tell you that, but I tell you that I'm not comfortable agreeing to it. Councilor Cunningham?
That's Chris.
Oh, Councilor Chenoweth, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mayor. So two things. One thing that would be helpful for me is to know what of these have already actually been completed, because I think a lot of these probably already are completed. So that would be helpful. I think that, this is specifically ARPA dollars. All of this is ARPA dollars. This is grant money given to us to do things theoretically connected to losses caused by COVID, loosely. This is not general fund dollars. This is not any tax dollars that are coming in. This is all ARPA dollars. So that would be the one thing I'd like to know, is what is completed, what is not completed.
Counselor Tukalski?
Ask you a question. Aren't these we were just talking about this, these are the dollars that were formerly known as ARPA dollars? So haven't we taken a loss, or have they been placed in a condition that they can be used elsewhere? Because these are real dollars.
Yeah, they're real dollars, and many of them have been spent. So it sounds like, at least for some of you, you would like to see more detailed information about the individual projects. I can tell you that all of the projects have been approved by council. So there are no new projects on the list. And there haven't been any new projects on the list for a couple of years.
Does that mean that we have to execute the projects, or can we forego some of these projects?
There are projects that aren't started and you don't want to do them, sure.
Right.
If there are projects that have been started, we need to be able to explain to the implications of stopping. I understand. That's what you want to do.
May I continue? And that's my concern. We're running a budget deficit within the city, and if we have these formerly known as ARPA dollars that are actual dollars that we can utilize, it would be important to find out what we can not spend in order to help balance that budget. And that's something I don't understand at this time with this level of detail, and that's what I'm asking to understand further.
Yeah, that's fair. We can give you some more project details on these. I will also tell you this is one-time money, and the budget that we're balancing now is about ongoing costs. So there are limited opportunities to utilize this money to take the edge off of the current budget challenges that we have. It would, to the extent that we use one-time dollars to back up ongoing costs, we're just deferring future cuts.
Thank you, Mayor.
Counselor Geary?
Yeah, just to put maybe what you were getting at, but a finer tip on direction is not a completed, not completed, but an assessment of where they're at in the process or progress, and an analysis on the what do we lose if we cut bait.
Counselor Payne?
Thank you. I'm maybe more just curious if we have sort of a really I guess like a 30,000-foot view of what the council's discussing in terms of these projects. So the 12 items that have reasons listed for amendments or adjustments, excuse me, those are things that are not completed.
Unfortunately, most of those are things that are completed or are in the completing phases. Nothing that we're bringing here are items that would be impacted by that choice. These are items that we're asking to reallocate. For example, the ARPA grant manager, we didn't need those funds, and we created the transparency software. There is nothing documenting that project was approved for use of ARPA dollars. I would like to get that documented, that change was approved for us to use those dollars for the transparency. It's already been spent, it's already done. I would like to get that documented. A lot of these other ones, we have projects that were completed. One project completed $750 over. Again, it's a small amount, but we're truing to the total amount of these dollars that came in. And so I'm just trying to get it all cleaned up. So none of these, the only one would be the ADA transition plan that has additional staff time rolled into there. That's taking into account some of your concerns as to would there be a possibility of using these one-time dollars towards one-time costs, and that staff time that's specifically dedicated to a one-time project. And so it makes sense to use one-time money for. The other ones are all projects that are already in motion or nearing completion, and this is just what's needed for us to wrap those up so that we can get them on.
Yeah, there actually, some of the projects aren't started yet, so we can come back to you with some project-specific information.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Just a comment. I just wanted to express, not to put any pressure on anybody on the dais, but from this counselor's perspective, I'm okay with what you've presented. I'm comfortable. I understand this is about clearing the numbers and making things clear and putting it all in one place, and that this is about spending we've already approved. And I'm also comfortable with the fact this is about ARPA dollars, so we're limited on what we can do with them anyways, other than what we've already committed them to. So I get all that. My bigger thing is just I like the list of projects completed, projects not completed. That's helpful for me to understand what have we really accomplished. And I wouldn't even mind, and I'm maybe really jumping the gun, but in the MEVLC, we have taken on a project. One of our goals for this upcoming year is to do a grant final review, so that we can establish whether the money that we spent was spent well. And I wouldn't mind seeing that happen with this list of projects that we agreed to go back and kind of do an evaluation. How did we do with this money, so that the next time around we have kind of a framework for the next group that's sitting at this dais on how they might be able to do better, if there is such a thing as doing better, if that makes any sense.
Dan?
Yeah, Councilor Chenoweth, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm personally not comfortable with this, and it might be because you're more familiar with it than I am, but even though we've allocated dollars, I'll say for a electric vehicle for library home delivery at $53,000, it doesn't mean that we need to spend it. Yeah? Is that the really pretty one out in the, that's wrapped? Okay. Okay. I'd be interested in understanding further about what we haven't spent, so we can figure out where we can actually save money that doesn't need to be spent.
Yeah. So I understand what you're doing, and I appreciate Katie, and I definitely want to do it. I think just with those that were new to all of this is, can you just explain it a little bit more before we agree to it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sal, do you have a question?
No, just a comment. I wanted to kind of throw my support to Councilor Chenoweth's comments, both about the relative comfort with the projects, given that they are the ARPA projects. And I do like the idea of doing some kind of post-mortem on what we spent with these grant monies, and to see how, just to kind of get an evaluation of how well that spending served the mission of the institution. Was it effective dollars spent? So appreciated those comments, and generally appreciate the discussion on the dais tonight regarding this. I'm supportive of members of council getting the additional information they requested, and thank you to staff for agreeing to do so.
Thank you, Sal. Councilor Carey.
I'll just also add, as someone who was here when that initial list was proposed, that my comfort with the overall list, with one caveat, and it was the additional funds in concept that I opposed on the settlement for the navigation center, and having those come out of ARPA is, I'm not a big fan of. I don't want to be paying that money anyway, regardless of out of the ARPA funds. So sans that piece of that list, I'm still in favor of closing out those ARPA projects that I was here for. So.
Councilor Tukalski.
I have one further comment. Thank you for your patience, Director Henry. I think you're doing a great job. So.
Thank you. Any additional? So can we just give us a little update and put it back on our next council?
We'll do our best. And Jeff, you just want to note for the record the one project implication of not taking action tonight.
Yeah, so we are going to have to tell our consultant on the 3rd Street project to pause working without the council being able to approve the additional funds for that project to wrap it up. So we're going to have to, they need a change order to finish everything up. So we are going to have to tell them to pause working for a while, just so you're aware.
So you guys, they met today, didn't they, or yesterday? And
Correct.
to finish the
To finish up the
30%?
30% design.
Okay.
Yeah, we have one more meeting that they're going to bring back everything to us.
Our plan will be to turn this around for your next council meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think within 2 weeks or sooner. I mean, next time we meet, we'll do it.
Just making sure you're aware.
Okay, thank you. That's only, how many years has it already been?
So the meeting on the ramifications of the meeting on that 14th is going to get punted down the road pending the approval of this list? Potentially, yes. Okay, understood. Thanks.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Just a question, do we need a motion to table that, or does the staff have enough?
I don't think we do because we didn't have a motion to vote on.
It is my opinion that since things can go on the agenda from 3 different locations, that nobody has the ability to take them off the agenda without a motion of the body. So I think that you need to move to postpone this to a date definite, which would be, I think, your next council meeting is what I heard.
So moved.
To clarify the motion, Councilor Chenoweth, are you saying that you move to delay this until the next regular meeting of the council?
I'm moving to delay this until which time, as our staff can bring it back to us. I don't want to put a specific date on that because I don't want to put that pressure on the staff. My preference would be to see it on the next agenda, but given the verbiage that the city manager used, I'm not I just don't want to put, he said we'll do our best, and so I don't want to put a definitive time on that.
Okay, I'll second the motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Claudia?
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Payne?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
And Council President Peralta.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
And I now adjourn the city council meeting at 9:41.
Thanks, everyone.